Welcome back to UKSM from Insomnia. We're about to go live with a Drakodan's tutorial on Sonic Adventure 2 Hero Story. But before I do hand it over to Drakodan, of course I want to remind you that we're doing all of this in aid of special effect. This might not be your standard type of marathon at the moment. We're doing tutorials instead, but the goal is still the same. Please, if you can give, help us donate and raise money for special effect. But without further ado, of course, I am going to hand it over to Drakodan, and he can get started whenever he wants.
Yep. Thank you very much, Matt. So, you honestly may as well start the timer now whenever you want. There's some stuff in the menus that I can talk about that's pertinent to running the game. I'm also going to quickly post in Twitch chat that I am watching the chat for if anyone would like to ask questions about the run. So, there you go. Hopefully you guys can all see that. So, important to mention before you just leap into learning this game, whatever, if I just go into my save files. So I have a save file with 180 emblems. This is a very important resource for anyone wanting to learn the game. If you go to speedrun.com/SA2B/resources, we have a bunch of things that help you learn the game, including this 180 emblem save file. So this gives you access to all the different stages in the game, and you can just do whatever you want at your own pace. So that's a nice thing to have handy. But we have a new save file here. So I'm just going to leap into Hero Story and start taking you through just how to play this game. So Hero Story begins with one of the only instances of a boarding section in the game with Sonic, where you're on this board going down some hills. Generally, you can move well in this section by just flicking the control stick rather than holding it. You'll see, I can hold it like this, but it's generally more efficient to just flick the control stick to make minor adjustments, unless you need to turn a tight corner, in which case I will hold the control stick. For these ramps, you do want to jump off these ramps, but the way that you want to tackle them differs depending on which ramp it is. For this second ramp that I'm coming up to here, I don't actually want to jump off the very edge of the ramp, because the distance that you get off these ramps is determined by how close you are to the end. I'm going to try to jump off the edge here. Well, it's not too close to the edge. But if I got much more speed off that ramp, I would land a lot closer to this wall and I'd just fly into it, so you can lose a lot of speed like that without deliberately meaning to. But generally, you just try and jump off those ramps and keep going. So about 26-27 seconds in, you'll land and you'll actually gain control of Sonic. And Sonic in this game, his fundamental movement is dictated by trying to use the spin dash as much as possible. It's tempting casually to get moving by just jumping and homing attacking everywhere and running, but it's nowhere near as efficient as just charging a spin dash and letting it go. The spin dash does have variable momentum. If I barely charge a spin dash and let it go from stationary, you can see that I don't move very fast. What you really want to do is fully charge a spin dash, which is determined by the pitch becoming even. Like, you can hear there's a rising pitch. And then once it evens out, you can unleash the spin dash and it will have full speed. From there, you want to just be trying to chain the spin dash as much as possible to be moving quickly. What I mean by this is that if you use an additional B input to unroll from the spin dash, you can see that I'm rolling, and then if I press B again, Sonic unrolls from it. If at this point I now hold B once again, you charge under the spin dash. So spin dash chaining rhythm is like a quick series of double B inputs where you do 2 B presses and the second one is held down to charge the spin dash. It's a little tricky to describe and to get used to, but this is how Sonic's fundamental movement works in the vast majority of cases. But we'll carry on and describe the stage route a little. You want to try and avoid this rail if you can, spin dash down the stairs, as well as jumping over this speed pad instead of just getting launched up here. It's a little slower. So once you round this left corner, you just take the staircase with a couple of homing attacks, and we come up to this ramp here. Now, if you want to take this section quickly, it's a common mistake to jump off these ramps. It looks flashy, and it looks fast, especially when you jump off this ramp, that looks really fast, but you can gain an incredible amount of speed in this game by maintaining the ball form from a spin dash down hills. What I mean by this is that if I go back up to the top of this hill, I mentioned that with the fundamentals of spin dashing and spin dash chaining, that you want to try and chain them together as much as possible. That is only true if you're on a flat surface or if you're going uphill. If you're going downhill, you want to maintain the ball form. You can gain an incredible amount of speed going down hills like that. For this staircase here, is just a little note that You want to be to either side of the staircase and spin dash up it so that you can just avoid this enemy. You can see that if you're to the side of this enemy, you won't hit him. And typically what a lot of people do is just let a spin dash roll up the staircase and go straight through the enemy, but if you're to the left or right, you don't need to worry about that. This also means that you can just unroll from the spin dash immediately. When I mentioned about needing to unroll from a spin dash when you're going uphill, you can see that if I just let the spin dash roll, I quickly decelerate as I'm going up the slope. That doesn't happen if I unroll from the spin dash. Like, I maintain my speed a lot more efficiently going up there. So we just continue. The only time I'm recharging my spin dash when going down hills like that is when I'm going over a new hill crest, so to speak. And the reason for this is that if you just maintain ball form while you go around a corner and go over a new hill crest like that, it's likely that you'll just fly off the hill. Such as that. That will happen quite frequently, and that loses quite a lot of time. So for rails in this game, for cornering with rails, it's tempting to hold the direction that you need to lean into, which can work, but you can see there that I leaned over, and Sonic did still lose a lot of speed on the rail. Like, this will still slow you down quite a lot. Instead, a typically more efficient way to deal with rail direction changes is to rapidly tap in the direction that you need to lean. Because this gives you a little bit of input in the direction you need to be leaning, but it's balancing it out, and Sonic will generally stay upright on the rail a lot more efficiently, and you'll lose a lot less speed as a result. So rather than taking this pulley here, you should just jump over this fence and carry on as normal. You can take this ramp here. I don't personally like it because whether you actually land on that speed pad there is dependent on a couple of factors, and if you can sometimes land here and just stop dead and it doesn't actually save any time, it's a little silly. To go around this loop, you ideally want to try and do a spin dash and maintain it through this loop and just go down this skyscraper like this. Messed this up slightly actually, but okay, so I tried to get a fast exit there, but I slightly missed it. I can revisit that if I come into this stage at a later point. Now, a fundamental piece of movement tech in this game is the spin dash jump, which you can use to cross large gaps. For this section, you're normally meant to just jump across these platforms and go to that spring in a couple of motions. You can get across this entire large pit in a single motion by doing a spin dash jump. If you just charge a spin dash and then immediately jump out of it, you can cross a really large distance, and that was with no analog input. So the amount of distance that I would have covered there when I did this would be a lot greater if I was holding the relevant control stick direction. So what I'm going to do here is, well, first I'm going to make a save state. I'm going to verify this is working. Yep, okay, so my save state tool is working. So I have a save state here. So if I just do a spin dash jump with no, oops. So I didn't get the spin dash jump input quickly enough there, but we can reload here. Please die, enemy. So if I just do it neutral stick with no input, you can see I don't get enough distance to cross the gap. But if I do the spin dash jump while I'm holding up on the control stick, please, there's a little bit of input latency, which is messing with my ability to get precise, quick inputs. So by holding up and then combining it with a homing attack, I'm able to get a little more distance, and it allows you to cross the gap. The game also takes into account that your momentum is dynamic. I'm also going to give myself 99 lives with this nifty tool. That'll help. So I just mentioned that momentum is dynamic in this game. What I mean by that is if I'm already moving at a high speed and then I charge another spin dash, while you're charging the spin dash, your speed value is stored. And so what that means is that if I'm moving like this and charge a spin dash, then I'll have additional speed once I come out the spin dash, and it helps you cross wide gaps like that again. To cross these gaps in the rail, you don't actually want to use directional input. You can just be neutral sticking. I don't have my inputs on the heads-up display at all, but I'm not using the control stick at all right now, so when I jump between these rails, Sonic will just naturally land on the next one without any need for analog input, and it just makes it a lot more manageable. Now for this truck section, this section can vary by a lot. You again want to just maintain a spin dash going down the hills, but there's a bunch of hill crests that you'll encounter, and you just kind of need to learn the timing for where these hills are so that you can charge and use spin dash over these hills. You kind of just have to trial and error this, but if I just let this spin dash roll, see how I came off that hill there? That will like happen consistently if you don't account for that. At the very end of this stage here, you'll like come through this archway, and if I just make another save state here, there's these couple of speed pads that will lock your controls. While I was in the air there, I couldn't move. I don't necessarily want that to happen because, nice camera view. There we go. If I'm on the very right edge here, this is difficult to manage because if you use analog input while you're rubbing against a wall, it will just slow you right down. So what I instead want to try and do is flick the control stick into the wall and then again use neutral input to just roll against it. Because if I'm against this leftwards wall while the speed pad launches me through, it just sends you straight into the goal ring, which is a little bit faster. So that's a nice little optimization to pay attention to. Alright, well, my phone, which is... actually, I'm going to take a quick little detour to load the Twitch stream. I apologize if this is interfering with the display capture at all, but I'm just going to pop out the Twitch chat so that I can actually have it on screen. That's a lot more manageable than what I was trying to do with my phone. Should have set that up ahead of time, but we've got 3 hours. We've got plenty of time for this. Alright guys, talk in Twitch chat, please. Also, yeah, dark mode. There we go. That's what I want. And yeah, I haven't got Keep Alive. So this is the first boss, Bigfoot. There's a couple of different methods you can use for this fight. The fastest method is to use the boxes at the front. I'll show you what that looks like. So this is how the fight should go normally at a high level, but this is a relatively advanced trick because the collision on the boxes can be a little bit iffy. What you can choose to do instead, which is a lot more manageable for developing players, is to use the back boxes instead. There's a box directly to the left of me, so I can just get on this, and I can pretty much jump and just let him come towards me. And you're always going to land in this general area, so you can just rinse and repeat this. This is only about 3 seconds slower than using the front boxes, but it's a lot more manageable. So that's what I recommend for a newer or developing player, and if you want to try and squeeze a couple of seconds, you can try and get used to using the front boxes if you want, but it's not terribly important. Biggest mistakes that I see new runners making, what's up Brian, Mega Master X, I would definitely say wanting to leap into doing the really advanced technical stuff first without learning a solid foundation. You should really get used to the fundamental movements and have a solid foundation to build from. So the Knuckles stages are very different to the Sonic and Tails stages. The objective in these stages is to find 3 shards of the Master Emerald. They are randomly generated, and we use these hint monitors that you can currently see on the right to help us find the Emerald shards. There's also a bunch of free piece checks that you can do throughout these stages. So there's a piece that can be inside these 3 boxes at the start of the stage. It's not going to be in this left one because this is piece 1, so it would already be pinging red as I enter the stage. There's a second piece which can be in these 2 boxes here. And you can, if I can get the camera to reset, I can get the camera to clip inside this box if I move it in a particular way. I'll be able to do it from a restart. So you can see that the camera is inside the box, and it will physically show you if there's a piece inside that box. And I don't have the other one here. But I mentioned that we use hint monitors to check. So I've got in front of the double containers. This always corresponds to the same spot, which is just up past this wind tunnel, and it's just over here. So this is how the Knuckles stages are played most of the time. You get a piece, you go to your next monitor, find out where your next piece is, go to that, find the next hint monitor, and then go to your final piece location. But as you can imagine, there is just a lot of memorization involved with playing these stages. There's no easy way to suddenly get good at these stages. You just have to learn where all of the hint locations refer to. So what I'm going to do is just play through the stage as I would in a run once, and just show you what it looks like with general execution and whatnot. So I have a free piece. That's the piece I'm talking about that you can see right at the start. Near the 6 pillars is one of these 2 rocks if it's pinging green at the start. If it isn't pinging green when you enter, it's one of the 2 back rocks. And I've got a piece over here, red gate. What am I doing? And it's in this box here. So 17 seconds is a very healthy Wild Canyon, but there are hundreds and hundreds of permutations of RNG, and you kind of just have to learn to play the stages through experience. When you enter a stage for the first time through the title card, there are 1024 possible combinations of pieces, and after you restart from inside a stage or die in a stage, you can get a lot of extra combinations of pieces. I'll talk a little bit more about that in Pumpkin Hill. So this is Tails, and we start off with Eggman. It is a boss fight, but it's barely worth commentary. You just face up and keep firing towards him. He'll pretty much always be done in 13 seconds. But although Tails' boss is simple, Tails' movement and general gameplay is not simple. We're entering Prison Lane just now, and there is a lot to digest with Tails. So to begin with, Tails' handling is very iffy. You can see that if I corner sharply here, I lose all my speed before I corner. Tails can't handle this very well. Prison Lane's gimmick right here is that there's a bunch of locked gates. You need to destroy groups of enemies to destroy these gates. So for instance, I'm running at full speed and I want to take this corner, but I slow right down. So the way that you want to tackle this as a runner is to jump around corners instead, because while you're airborne, you won't lose speed nearly as much as you do on the ground. So whenever you need to turn sharp corners with Tails, you're almost always going to be turning in midair. And as I said, Prison Lane's gimmick is the fact that there's a bunch of locked doors. So at a bunch of intervals through the stage, you need to destroy groups of enemies to unlock doors. So this is the first group. You need to destroy these 3 enemies. Then you need to destroy this enemy guarding this door. I just get that enemy out of the way. It's not terribly important. So once you're up here, these 2 enemies guard this door. This won't open until those 2 enemies are destroyed. This next door here is guarded by these 2 enemies here. You can hop up this elevator to skip it slightly. For these wooden boxes, you can go through here without slowing down, but the camera makes it a little awkward to manage as the camera pans around here. Like, you can see the camera turns with me there. And you want to be like either on the left side or the right side, since you can destroy these boxes as you're approaching them, but if you're in the middle, you'd need to get both boxes simultaneously. What I try and do is try and be on the left side so that I only need to destroy the leftmost box. Like that. I didn't do my jump correctly, but it is what it is. Now, the way that I jump through this little floor platform here, nice camera. I'm trying to get the camera to reorient. I have never seen the camera do that, honestly. I actually can't really get the camera to reorient to where I need it. We'll just take a death and start again. Yeah, the camera can be very awkward in this game. So I'll just get back up to where I was. I should also be remembering to periodically make save states as well. I'll make a save state here just in case. So I'll make a state here. Whoops, I loaded a state. I'm not currently able to use my regular keybinds on the controller, so I am using the keyboard keybinds, which I'm not very used to. But, alright, so back up here, so save state. So I mentioned about just jumping through this platform here. Normally you're meant to just wait here and jump on top of this platform, but there are a lot of structures in this game and textures which are only solid on one side. Get out of the way. So this platform here is only solid on the top end, so you can just jump through the bottom end. You can see if I can't like jump back through it because it's completely solid. So if I do that one more time, you'll see that I'm just able to jump straight through it. So that saves a little bit of time there. This single enemy guards this gate here. And now this is a little tricky here. What I'm going to do here is a little skip where I can jump on top of this next gate as it's coming down, and I can skip this next elevator section. I'm probably going to need to like, in fact, I got a checkpoint, so I'm going to be able to die if I make a mistake here. But in simple terms, these 2 enemies guard this gate, so once these 2 are dead, this gate comes down, and you can see that flying enemy that just came by and fired a shot. This guy is a problem if you're trying to do this elevator skip, for a reason that I'll show after taking a respawn. So if I take care of these 2 enemies quickly, but ignore that flying enemy, you can see there that that shot almost hit me. I only got rid of that shot because I still did target the flying enemy and destroyed him very quickly. That shot normally snipes you and stops you from being able to perform that skip, but if you destroy an enemy that fired a projectile, it despawns the projectile as well. So that's a very quick way to deal with that enemy coming towards you and firing the shot. So what this will normally look like is just jumping on top of here and then jumping on top of there as well. This platform is a little more thick than it looks. Like, it looks very narrow, but because of Tails' hitbox, you have a little more room to play with than you would otherwise think. Like, I'll just take one more death and demonstrate this. I just need to remember to not destroy that last enemy. So you can see here that there is a surprisingly wide area where you can actually stand on here before you fall off. So the most important thing with that is to make sure that when you're reaching the end of that fence and you need to jump across here, that you don't turn too sharply on the ground, because again, you'll just lose your speed. These 3 enemies guard this gate. Just get these couple of enemies out of the way and get onto this elevator. You want to then get behind this fence so that you can just progress as soon as possible, and you don't need to wait for this fence to come down once you're at the top. You can see currently on screen where I've got the ×1 lock-on. That's an early enemy that's hidden behind solid geometry. The lock-ons on this game don't really care about whether you have a line of sight to an enemy. It's just based on specific positions, and some of them are really weird, like me being able to get that enemy from across there. But that does lower a gate early. So then I can progress through here. 3 more enemies here to get this next gate down. And this next gate is guarded by an enemy that only drops down when you get very close to the gate. So that guy only appears once you get very close. This guy for this gate. Now once I'm on here, I want to face left, and you can see at the edge of the screen that I've got a lock on. This enemy isn't important to destroy per se, but it will get in the way of me being able to target other important enemies once I get up here. So I just get him out of the way early. These 2 enemies are the guys that guard this gate, and I want to wait here and then go once the gate is open so that I can go through with momentum. Again, go corner. Now, when you go up this elevator, you can see that there's an enemy that is currently coming into view past the top of the platform. Once the enemy comes into view, I just go and I jump on top of the platform, and I'm going to jump again once I'm at the top to avoid the shot that he fires towards me. So you can see, like that, I wait for the visual cue of the enemy being visible and then jump again to avoid the shot that he fires. At this point, there is an early lock-on that you can get with this enemy here, who currently guards this gate. This is very awkward to get from this position because the camera is not well situated, and the required position to get the enemy is just very weird. You can see that I got him there, but that chooses not to work a lot of the time. There's now 3 additional enemies past this next gate that guard it. You can get them from here with up left input. You can see that you can get a bunch of lock-ons like that, destroy that gate early. And there's another gate hop here with these 3 enemies guarding it. But you can see that this next gate, the final gate at the end there, is still locked. It's guarded by a hidden enemy, which you can get early at this spot. You can see that there's these shadows on the floor. I'm on the first shadow, now I'm on the second shadow. If you jump at this spot and lock on, you can see that I've got another enemy there. That's the enemy that guards this last gate. So you can see that this gate is now open. And now this final gate in the stage is guarded by all of these enemies in the room here. So you need to do a lot of destruction to get that gate to open. There's a lot of targets to get there, and you just need to try and make sure you don't miss any targets there. So I'm seeing in chat someone asking, can I talk about how the camera works with it being an object with collision? Yeah, the camera is akin to a physical object in this game. So when you clip out of bounds, and you do it by clipping through a solid wall, the camera will often not want to follow you until a specific point. That point being either that you trigger what we call a free cam trigger, or you get far enough that the camera is forced to follow you. With the start of Metal Harbor here, I recommend just doing a simple loop skip by waiting until you're running up like this, and then just jump around the loop so you don't have to take it naturally. Now, I see a lot of players like jumping across this gap like this. This isn't actually the most efficient way to take this section. What you should instead do is just naturally roll down the slope that you come across. So I'm just going to show this again. So once you take this speed pad, if you just charge a spin dash when you land and roll down the slope, you can just jump, and you'll either grab that ledge, or you'll have the same thing that I mentioned again with Prison Lane, where the bottom of structures is not solid, so you can still clip through the bottom of that structure. So that is safer than it appears. Like, as long as you have a high jump, you will be able to clip through that. And then rather than taking this spring here, just again jump so that you can do this. I'm going to grab this checkpoint just for safety, because rather than taking I'll save a state here. Rather than taking these springs, you can see like it takes a bit of time to take those springs. But what I can instead do is a spin dash jump to the left from here, and then just another one from here. Now you've got this long string of enemies which you normally homing attack along. That's the way that you're normally meant to take this section, but you can instead do a very long spin dash jump from the right hand side of the enemies, and you can get away with only needing to spin dash, or rather homing attack, the final enemy of the chain, and progress like that. Something to note is that you do need to be to the right of the enemies before you do that spin dash jump. Because if I'm like in line with this enemy and then try and spin dash jump, I'll just hit him, and then I kind of need to do the homing attack chain like this. So you want to go up this pulley and grab the light dash. So this is Sonic's first upgrade, and this allows you to use the light dash when you're near a trail of rings. If I press the B button here, my action is a somersault. If I hold the B button, it's a spin dash. But you can see that when I get close to the light dash trail, there's this prompt on screen which tells me to light dash. So whilst this prompt is on screen, if I use the action button, it will just perform a light dash. And I'll quickly make a save state here and demonstrate something. When you dash through this trail of rings, you don't actually want to hold up on the control stick. If I hold up when I do this, I get flung really high up in the air like that. It's only a minor thing, but it is easy to pay attention to not do that. If I come back and I just load the state, if I instead go through this light dash trail with neutral input, I just drop down immediately, and that's a little bit faster. For this runway, you want to just try and chain homing attacks down the right hand side like that, and you've got a couple of light dashes here. You can jump around the left side of that half loop. Like if you just take the half loop normally, it's shaped like this. Which again, like it doesn't lose a major amount of time, but man, nice camera. The optimizations in this game pretty much all come in the form of saving little bits of time by using very minor optimizations. Skipping that big zipper pad there is another example of that, because if you go into it, you get launched really high in the air. There's nothing you can do for a couple of seconds. So you ideally just want to skip it entirely by just jumping over it or doing a spin dash jump over it, either or. Yeah, like you can just jump and homing attack over it. So a neat little something to show here is that this is the first instance where we can see how storage works. Normally you can't pass through these somersault barriers without somersaulting. You're meant to use the somersault to bypass these barriers. But by using a trick called storage, you can just run under them. What storage is that, like I say, every action in this game is on the same button. Somersault and spin dash are on the same button. So I need to hold the action button before a spin dash comes out. In that short duration before the spin dash comes out, the game thinks I'm somersaulting. So if I'm just running against this and I start holding the B button, you can see that Sonic just runs under the somersault barrier without actually somersaulting. And that is facilitated by the fact that I'm using storage. Again, all it is holding the B button. While the B button is held down, the game thinks that you're somersaulting. And that gives you the properties of a somersault, which involves a shorter hitbox and the ability to damage enemies. So, in this short duration before the spin dash comes out, like if you have a lot of speed, you can just run under a somersault barrier, and that will work very consistently. Now to skip this next little loop, there's like a couple of ways that you can do this. Well, there's one main way you can do this. Again, I'll save state here. You can just do a spin dash jump across here and break through this loop. But if you are too high up the loop, it can cause issues with the camera wanting to invert. So you can break through lower on the loop, but you don't want to do it like that, where you homing attack towards the loop. If you homing attack as you're approaching the loop, you'll trigger what we call the loop speed trigger. And since you're not through the other side of the loop, you aren't on the top of solid collision, so it will just launch you straight into the water like that. If you wait until you're through the loop and then homing attack, let's try this again. So again, if you do it like that, you won't be on solid ground. But if you wait till you're through the loop, the game will still give you a burst of speed and try and force you downwards, but since you are above solid ground, the game can't force you through the loop. So really, if anything, you do want to wait until you're through solid ground. Just wait till you're on top of solid ground and then do a homing attack to do that. These three speed pads here are a little weird. Yo, nice. Someone's playing Stardew Valley. So, So these 3 speed pads here, if you're on the leftmost speed pad, it will give you a huge speed boost and launch you into the air. You don't necessarily want that because airtime generally loses time. If you hit either of these 2 speed pads, you'll get a lot less speed with a lot less airtime. That is actually what you want. Again, the rightward speed pad will do the same thing. And sure, again, the left speed pad sends you way up in the air. You want to avoid that if possible. So then you can just jump and homing attack like that. You can do the same thing with this, but you'll still have a lot of airtime and it just wastes a little bit of time. So spin dash down here, and again there's a somersault barrier coming up again here, so I'm going to do another double B input to unroll and then use storage to go underneath the somersault barriers from here. You can see that you can just run under the somersault barrier by simply holding B as it comes out. It just needs to be the short timing window between holding B and when the spin dash comes out, because if you're charging the spin dash, you're obviously not going to move or go anywhere. So for this gap, you're, again, meant to homing attack this trail of enemies. I'll get the checkpoint and then die to respawn with the enemies still intact. What you can instead do is just a spin dash jump across this large gap. I do recommend doing a single large spin dash jump, which doesn't involve you needing to homing attack the enemies. What I see a lot of people doing is jumping across and then homing attack that last enemy. That can work, but it is a bit unnecessarily dangerous, because the homing attack in this game can have some very weird targeting properties, and it can decide to go for the wrong enemies at certain points. Like if I do it when I'm around there, you can see that it targets the wrong enemy, and you can get into a really weird situation where it can just be very unnecessarily dangerous. So if you can cross the gap without homing attacking at all, I would recommend doing that. Now for this rocket platform, you would normally want to take this section by going around the rocket platform a couple of times, but it's very awkward to get around here. There's a lot of stuff that can potentially go wrong. This is your target. This is still going to kill me while I'm over here. This is going to be weird. Yeah, so what we typically do in runs instead is we will skip this platform altogether. If you ideally land on this platform, again, this is a bit more wide than you would think, so it's a little easier than you would think to land on this. It's fairly safe as long as you don't go really, really wide. If you do a spin dash jump or a spin dash hover, I'll explain what a spin dash hover is a little later. To get onto the base of the rocket platform, we can do a sloped spin dash jump to just bypass this altogether. If you stand on this slope and perform a spin dash jump, you can get an incredible amount of height, and you can use that to get straight to the rocket handle. There you can see, there's the handle right there. So I'll demonstrate this one more time. So again, I do a spin dash jump from the sloped surface, and it gives me a bunch of height, because since I'm on the upslope, the forward momentum that I get is translated partially into upwards momentum. I can do the same spin dash jump from this flat surface, but it's not as efficient. Like you can see, it's more difficult to get a good spin dash jump from here. Like it can work, but I don't necessarily want to rely on it. So I'm seeing chat also ask about what a homing attack cancel is. This is a good spot to demonstrate it, since the camera gives me a good view of my homing attack trail. So when you perform a homing attack, you can see that this blue trail follows Sonic here. And if during the homing attack you press the B button, the homing attack trail gets cut short. So, please, let me just do it here. So when I press the B button there, you can see that the homing attack trail gets cut short a little there. This gives you a little bit of a momentum boost, and the effect is more pronounced the closer the homing attack cancel is to when you perform the homing attack. So in other words, the shorter the trail is, the larger of a speed boost I get. So if I do a late cancel, it looks like this. You can see that I still get, like, a full trail is like that, and a trail that's cancelled late looks something like that. Like, it's getting cancelled, but I'm still getting quite a long trail. But if I cancel it really early, you can see that I barely get any homing attack trail at all. And this does give you a speed and momentum boost. Like, it's a speed boost, and it translates into a distance boost, because you just travel more distance before you land. If I just do a regular homing attack from this yellow line, so I land about in line with where this ring capsule was. If I go back and do the same thing with a homing attack cancel, You can see that I gain a little more distance here. It's not much, but it will obviously be pronounced by holding a direction. So if I hold left, then I get, you know, that much distance with a regular homing attack. If I hold left with a homing attack cancel, then it does make a little bit of difference. And there's a surprising amount of points where that will make the difference between whether you can get across a gap or not. And even if it doesn't make a difference between making a gap or not, you still want to do it because it's a little bit faster and it's a slight optimization. So to come back to this rocket platform section, I don't necessarily recommend jumping down from that spot that I was at because you get this camera issue here, where you can't really see what you're doing. And you need to basically force the camera to get reoriented if you can, and it's just a little bit awkward. This is why I do this section instead, by spin dash hovering from the sideways, from the side platform like this. What a spin dash hover is, I can also explain here. This is another base mechanic of Sonic's movement. If I just let a spin dash go in this direction, you can see that I didn't quite get the distance to cover that gap. But if I hold the B button to charge the spin dash, so I'm charging the spin dash, so now I'm also holding the A button, so I'm holding B and A simultaneously. So now if I release the B button while the A button is still held down, so that I'm then only holding A, you can see that I get a lot more distance because I'm essentially hovering. What a hover is, it's the game's way of making you ascend in a jump. When I ascend in a jump like this is me using hover frames. Every time you perform a jump, you have 60 hover frames which help you ascend and stop you from descending. And that's refreshed every time you perform a jump. So the value is currently at 60. I jump, and then when I run out of hover frames, I descend. We can show how this looks by just tapping to pause. And if I hold the A button now to unpause, the game will apply my hover frames, and this is going to look really weird. Sonic's going to hang in the air. See that there? And I can also use it when I'm starting to descend to fall very slowly. And that works for 60 frames. So I did mention that the hover frames are refreshed every time you jump. This is important because, for instance, I showed that you can cross that large gap with a spin dash hover. But if I get on this side platform, and then if I perform a full jump, and then try to spin dash hover, so I do a full jump, so right now I've wasted all my hover frames. If I now try to do the spin dash hover, so I'm holding A, release B, again, I don't have the hover frames necessary. Whereas to show how this differs, if I, do a full jump here, so I currently don't have any hover frames. If I tap a new jump, so I've only tapped the A button, I have most of my hover frames now because I haven't spent them. Tapping the jump button refreshes the value back to 60, and then it barely spends any of them because I don't spend very much time holding the A button. So now if I do a spin dash hover, I again get a lot of distance. So that's the basics behind how a spin dash hover works in this game. So we'll carry on now. I've spent quite a bit of time there. And I do only have 3 hours to do this, so I do need to move this along slightly. So to get off this rocket quickly, you want to be mashing the A button. That forces Sonic to let go of the handle a couple of seconds early. And now there's another last loop skip you can do here, but there's a couple of ways that you can do it, but if you're intimidated by it, it only loses a couple of seconds to get that speed pad there. You just need to make sure that the camera doesn't disorient you as it flips around as you get in line with the speed pad there. So we're coming up to a boss fight here, Shadow 1. This is another instance where we can use storage, which I'm going to be demonstrating, as well as showing a couple of things that you need to ideally try and avoid in the Shadow fight. I mentioned that storage gives you the properties of somersaulting, which includes the ability to go under somersault barriers. It also gives you the ability to inflict damage on enemies. So Shadow is meant to avoid damage normally, because if he detects that you're in the somersault animation and you're in front of him, he'll just jump to avoid it. So I'm going to just try to somersault into him, but he's not going to have it. He'll jump to avoid it. So you can see there that he just immediately jumps to avoid it. And his AI is really programmed to recognize that when he's just running around normally. Because even if I'm way out of range of him, the act of somersaulting there causes him to jump. So he'll always recognize that you're trying to somersault. So how to damage him? I mentioned that you can use storage to do this. So Storage doesn't really have a visual tell. You just have to take my word for it that I'm using storage when I run into it. Well, you can see here that I'm running into him and not inflicting any damage. But if I use storage to run into him, you can see there that I ran into him and just inflicted damage. That's because I was holding the B button when I contacted him. And this bypasses the check where the game looks to see whether you're somersaulting based on if you're in the animation. If you're not physically somersaulting, he won't jump to avoid the damage. There's also a little trick you can try to do here called infinite storage if you really want to do it. Where if you just press the B button for no more than a couple of frames, I'm just going to try and tap the B button for a very short amount of time. So I may have gotten it there. We'll see if I got it based on if I inflict damage when I run into Shadow now. Yeah, so I currently have infinite storage. When you do infinite storage, the game thinks that you're in a somersault state until you do something else. So right now the game thinks I'm somersaulting. And I'm going to even let Shadow attack me. Come on, dude. Help me attack me. I need to not damage him again. I want him to attack me. He's not going to do it, is he? So you can see there that he just bounced off me because, again, the game thinks I'm in the somersault state. You can't take damage while you're in the somersault state. So it's a nice little tidbit about the fight. You also can't homing attack him from the front. The casual way that you're meant to take this fight is that you're meant to hit him from behind. The game doesn't check to see whether you're attacking Shadow if you attack him from behind. So normally you'd bait him into attacking and then just get him while he's immobilized after attacking. Like that. But it can be tricky to get behind him and then he'll start recovering, so again, the quickest way to take this fight is just to hit him with storage. Now, if you just hold B while you're approaching him, you will spin dash after the storage hit, like this. So if you do it too early, you'll spin dash before you reach him, or you will spin dash after hitting him. This can be dangerous since you will invariably shoot off very fast in a direction, and this can cause you to exit the stage accidentally. So what I typically do is I hit him with storage and then I do a jump to get away from him. And this lets you chain some hits close together. And that hopefully should go without too much incident. There's a lot of ways that the fight can go wrong, but it's not too difficult to practice. Albeit, if you finish the fight, you do need to watch the faker cutscene to get back in the fight again. So I'd recommend, if you're going to practice that fight, getting 2 hits on Shadow and then just restarting the fight. You don't want to finish the fight. So yeah, this cutscene. So when you start Green Forest, you actually want to do this stage with no analog input at all. If I just hold the action button to charge a spin dash and let it go, I get the best spin dash that I can get going down this hill. I'll compare that with if I hold forward and do a spin dash, it's going to be really, really janky. Like, yeah, you don't want to get into that situation. You just want to do a neutral spin dash and let it roll. And from here, this is just basic movement with Sonic. Try and spin dash across the crests of hills. Yeah, this mushroom has very weird collision, and so do these slopes. You just got to try and deal with it. And yeah, walls will slow you down if you angle into them. There's a lot of things that try and slow you down in this section. I'll try and take this section quickly, but it is non-trivial taking this quickly. Okay, good enough. Now if you get launched off that slope, you just want to land on the speed pad and progress as normal. There's another little thing. This is again just a minor optimization that I'm going to be able to show on this next vine here. Well, on this next spring. So when I reach this spring, I'm going to make a save state. So you go through this spring and this vine, and once you land here, I need to charge and use spin dash, which is like, you know, do another B input. The game really does not want to load my actual position. Wow. The game cannot figure out where I am. Wow. I've never seen it get this confused when trying to load a state. I'm just going to have to die to reset my position. Alright. Yeah, the save state tool is a little finicky with where it can let you load from. And now it thinks I'm here. Alright. Yeah, that's apparently just a really bad position to use the save stating tool from. So I'll try again once I get up to here. I'll make a save state up here. So I'll try making a state here. It's like it recognizes. Oh, it's not functioning correctly right now. I'm gonna try and just quickly diagnose this. Okay, now it's working. No, it's not. Alright, this is really weird. Either way, I'm just going to continue without the safe stating tool if I can't use it. It's not of paramount importance. What you can use here is a trick called spin dash storage. I mentioned that there's the short duration between using storage and the spin dash coming out. The time that is spent before the spin dash comes out is itself a stored value. So if I don't use any spin dash storage and go through this spring, and then try and spin dash after I get down here, you can see there's a short delay between when the spin dash actually comes out after I land. But if I use storage going into this spring, and then if I hold B the entire way through, I'm going to get this spin dash as soon as I land. And that's caused by just holding the button as I'm approaching the spring, but not long enough that the spin dash has time to come out before I hit the spring, and then holding the action button the entirety of the way through the spring and the vine animation, and then once I get on the ground, it just lets the spin dash come out immediately. So to avoid this loop's a little weird. Like, you take this loop normally just like this, you go all the way around, and then you'll hit this. I'm going to try to load my state one more time. Yeah, no, it's not having it. So I'm going to need to take a death here to get back to where I was. That's disappointing that the save state tool is like not working for me right now.
Do you think that could be something to do with
So I'm going to get back up to...
that could be something to do with our computer?
Excuse me?
Do you think it could be something to do with our computer, or is it just the software?
I'm not sure. It's not too important anyway. I'll just be a little more brief with the things that I'm describing. If people really want to learn this game in depth, they can always like come to me, and I've got tutorials online and whatnot. But anyway, so I want to show how this loop skip here works. So rather than going all the way around the loop, what you can do is jump over these speed pads, which is important because they lock your controls. Charge a spin dash here and release it upright, which will send you in that general direction. That was a very close loop skip, but you can see the logic behind how that works. Once you get up here, to go down this slope, ideally you want to be on this central vertex here. You can see there's like a bunch of different vertexes that Sonic can stand on. If I'm on any of these slanted ones and then try and release a neutral spin dash, then I'm going to go all over the place. But if I'm on this neutral vertex here and release the spin dash with no input, then you just go down really smooth and really fast. There's these 3 springs that I'm about to hit here. It is slower to hit the bottom 2 ones. Ideally, you want to try and hit the top spring if you can. That will have been the middle spring there, which lands me, yeah, a little further back here, but not terribly important. So there's 2 options that you have here as a player. You can do the really advanced tree run strat, or you can just skip the loop and ascend the tree normally. For like beginners and intermediate players, I would really recommend just skipping this loop and going along the regular path. Now, there's a light dash that you can get going up this next section here. Once you take the spring, you cross this trail of rings. And you can light dash across this trail of rings to immediately reach the spring, but there's a few different ways that the light dash can trigger. So you can see there that I got stopped halfway through. If I take a death and restart from the checkpoint, I'm going to go again from here. And I'm going to show what is a relatively consistent way to make sure that you get the good light dash. So we've got this ring trail here, and it's important to show that there's a couple of different ways that you can get a light dash based on your position when you trigger the light dash. You can see that Sonic is currently, the after images of Sonic are not following a straight line. Like, it's a little bit janky. That's because I triggered the light dash from the side of the ring trail. But if you get the light dash from directly behind the ring trail, you'll get a very straight light dash through them. So if I do it from directly behind the ring trail here, you can see that that trail is just super, super smooth. From here, if I hold up, if I just continue to hold straight up into this spring, I need to storage into the spring as well, I forget. So I'm going to get the neutral light dash from behind the ring trail, and I'm going to use storage into the spring, and then just use B inputs to get the light dash as I'm passing along the big ring trail, or the ring trail that's halfway up. And you'll just immediately go into that spring. That is supposed to be relatively consistent. So,
I'm getting ready. Good luck.
all right, good luck. So I'm going to do this once again. So I'm going to do the B inputs to do the light dash. I'm going to hold the B input into the spring, and then I'm going to mash B as I'm going past the light dash trail halfway up the tree, and it should send me straight into the spring. No, it's a little temperamental, but that will work like more often than not. It is well worth going for that light dash halfway up, because there's a lot of different ways that it can trigger. Only one of them is very, very bad, and it's still recoverable. Now, as you're going up here, the quickest way to ascend this section is to homing attack this enemy, but I should note that when you want to homing attack an enemy, you do want to make sure that you are at least in line with the enemy. By that I mean, I want to be at least as high as the enemy. So I'm just going to fall down here again and ascend. The reason for this is that the homing attack in this game never wants to go upwards. The homing attack doesn't want to ascend, so if I'm underneath the enemy, I barely got him that time. If I was any lower, I wouldn't have gotten the enemy. So we've got here a little skip. This isn't a major skip, but it does save quite a bit of time. You can skip this upcoming bungee section by just spin dash jumping across here and just landing down here. This is like, I'll show how much time that saves, because I'll play that section. So I would be doing a spin dash jump from there, and at this point I'd be landing at that section. But if I didn't do that, I need to take this bungee section, which sends me down here, bounces me back up, and then I land around here. So it does save like a non-trivial amount of time. The way that you want to do this is that you want to do a spin dash jump off the left side, as I showed. You do want to go leftwards enough to avoid an invisible wall, though. If I bear fairly far to the right, you should have seen there on the top right that Sonic wasn't really moving, and by just holding the jump, I didn't have enough distance to cross the gap there. There is an invisible wall that will halt your progress unless you go leftwards enough. And additionally, the camera also gets stuck on the inside of this loop, which kind of prevents you from seeing what you're doing, makes it a little difficult to navigate. You can force the camera to follow you once it gets stuck there by tapping a shoulder button to force what we call free cam mode. There's two camera modes in this game, auto camera and free camera. So once the camera gets stuck, I'm just going to hold that, and the camera immediately follows me. That gives you a much more convenient view to see what you're doing. And from there, that shouldn't give you too much difficulty. So I'll just do this one more time. So tap, and the camera follows me. And from here, we can just progress normally. Now, this loop skip here is, you can see that we can cross this huge gap here. There's a couple of details to this loop skip that are well worth being aware of, though. Firstly, I see a lot of people doing a spin dash jump to cross this gap, like they charge a spin dash and they physically jump across. This isn't necessarily what you want to do. You're going to really struggle to get enough distance with the spin dash jump, because one of the properties of this game is a value called air resistance. If you are holding the jump button, then the game forcibly slows you down. Like during a spin dash jump, my forward momentum gets slower and slower until it reaches a minimum value. If I just let the spin dash go without jumping, if I just let it roll, then in theory I should be able to get some more forward distance. It does depend on the angle that you hit that quarter pipe there, but you can't just go straight forward, otherwise, oh please vertexes. You can't just hold basically straight forward, otherwise you'll clip this ledge. Or the worst case scenario is I'm going to try to hit a specific angle here. Yeah, that's the worst thing that can happen, that you clip the ledge and you completely lose your homing attack. That will just force you to die. So this is a little bit of a precise angle, but the save point is right here, the checkpoint, so this isn't too difficult to just practice. Yeah, this is the worst thing that can happen. You clip the ledge and you skew the gravity. Like, I'm not falling directly forwards, like you cannot recover from that. So again, this is a little precise to actually hit this. Yeah, like again, that's the worst thing that can happen. So I'm going to take the angle a little more conservatively this time and just make sure I get launched in the air a bit. It's worse than dying. Now, see how I homing attack there and got a lot of speed? That's me hitting the loop speed trigger with a regular homing attack, not a homing attack cancel. If you do a homing attack cancel, you won't ride the loop speed trigger. As I mentioned in Metal Harbor, you do want to make sure that you are through solid ground before you do that homing attack. Because if you are underneath the loop when you do that, it can decide to just launch you underneath the stage and into the water. That is something to really be avoided. So I'm only going to talk briefly about Pumpkin Hill to try and move this along. I will show that you do need the shovel claws in Pumpkin Hill. I'm going to start Pumpkin Hill by ignoring the shovel claws, but you're going to find that I'm not able to finish the stage. It's like the upgrade is right there in front of you, and you'd think, well, why not grab it? You'll see exactly why to grab it. So let's see what my first hint is. Laughing into tears. So this is over at Pumpkin Mountain. So we take this rocket to reach the top of Pumpkin Mountain quickly. And this piece is over here. So second hint. Tombstone near some grass. So this piece is underground, so I can't actually get it. What I'm going to do is re-enter the stage. Hopefully I'll get a second piece that's exposed, but I'm not going to keep resetting for this. I'll just try this one more time to get a piece 2 that's exposed. Because the game can give you a piece 2 that's underground, it can give you a piece 2 that's exposed. Double container, so this is going to be in 3 separate spots. The check order that we do is going over to Ghost Train Mountain first. If it's at Ghost Train Mountain, it's inside these 2 boxes here, which is a very good piece, but we go over here to see if the radar's pinging green. If it's not green by the time you're around this area, then we turn around and go to Church Mountain instead, take this rocket up. So the radar didn't ping as I'm going up here, which means it's a Pumpkin Mountain. The church piece is these 2 boxes here. So it's close enough that, again, when you're taking this rocket, the radar will briefly ping green. But since it didn't, that means it's over at Pumpkin Mountain. So if I take it here, it's going to ping once I get over here. Yep. And it's in these 2 boxes here. You can see it, but you can't take it. So this is an exposed piece 2. So I can go over to Church Mountain to get this. So I'm going to destroy this enemy quickly. Now this is a nice little detail. Normally you'd need to use this missile to destroy the cage to get the piece, but Knuckles' hitbox can be extended by punching. So if I just punch towards the piece, you just get it without any problem. There's no need to break that. Now the problem I'm going to have here is, okay, where's my next piece? So I found where my piece is, but it's underground. This piece is in the center of a triangle, by the way. Yeah, in the center of a triangle. But I can't grab the piece because it's underground. This will happen with 100% consistency. The game forces you to get the upgrade by giving you a piece 3 that is always underground. This upgrade is not skippable. So like, I need to get this upgrade because I'll always get a piece 3 which is underground. Like I said, with the first try when I got the piece 2 that was underground, the game can give you a piece 2 that's underground, or it can give you a piece 2 that is exposed in the stage. But if I keep dying to re-roll my piece 3, I will keep getting piece 3s, which I'm forced to dig for, so you cannot skip the shovel claws. So I just wanted to demonstrate there, if you choose to ignore the shovel claws and play without it, it doesn't do any good, because the game will force you to pick them up anyway. So you really may as well just pick up the shovel claws as the stage begins. So on to Mission Street. So this is a cycle-based stage. By that I mean, as soon as the stage begins, the platforms that are further on in the stage are rising and falling on their own, and they're on a timer. So you need to play this stage at a minimally brisk pace to try and meet early cycle. So I am going to be playing through this stage quickly and just explaining what I'm doing as I'm going through it to try and cut this time down. So you need to get Tails' booster here, and the first trick we can do with the booster is a hover jump, which I'm going to try and pause buffer here. So the weight has just started lifting off the floor, and I've already done an A input before I paused the game. What I'm now going to do is try and unpause the game and hold A directly after. I'm pause buffering to try and get my 2 A inputs as close together as possible. So my A input there was just a little inefficient, so I'm going to try this one more time. And I'm just going to like do the motion all in one without explaining what I'm doing. It's a lot easier for me to manage if I just do it off feel. So I'm just going to emulate the route that I was doing first time. So, yay, we got the upgrade and all that. And now we go towards here, try do another hover jump. So by hover jumping, you can gain more height than you're supposed to with the hover. And this lets you get early cycles. First of all, I'm able to get on top of this weight, which lets me get the first part of the early cycle of this stage. You can see these platforms are rising and falling. So normally I would be a cycle behind, where I wouldn't be able to be at this point until now. So now I'm able to start playing through the stage, and I need to play very quickly to be able to meet the cycle at the end of the stage. So I'm going to use another pause hover here to bypass these cages. Try and destroy enemies to get out of the way. I am using ground cornering, but it's very gradual, so I'm not losing speed. And now rather than continue on normally here, you want to go under this bridge and hit this speed pad that's underneath the bridge here. And it zooms you along very quickly. And now I break this box that's to the right of me, and I make this shadow fall, grab the switch to make this weight elevator active, and I can just carry on like this. And now this cycle that's coming down here, this is the fastest possible cycle that you can meet, which we call zero cycle. You need to move very efficiently through the stage to meet that. And if you lose much time, you're not going to get that, and you'll either need to get a later cycle or take the platforms that are on the front end of the stage. Please. So we can skip out most of this corner here. Now, I mentioned this in my Hero Story run the other day, that when you clip in here, you don't want to clip in at the lower point where this flat fence is, because this flat part of the fence is actually solid. So you don't clip in there. Whereas if you clip in on the higher sloped part of the sloped part of the fence is not solid. So you'll just clip straight through it. So you would think that that's less safe, but it's actually more safe. Now from here, the rest of the stage is just some fundamental movement. I can use some very precise angles to fit through this gap here. This next gap is a little more awkward. I'm deviating towards the center and then leaning towards the wall again, which lets me slip through that gap very quickly. If I just back out here, and if I try and hug the wall as I do this, okay, so I got through that time. But that time you see that I collided with the box. It's basically random whether that will happen if you try and hug the wall. And you can get some really awful collision where you can either stop fully like that, or it can even bounce you backwards. But if you instead just like say, lean towards the center a bit and then lean back towards the wall, you'll get through there without too much trouble. It's a bit of an awkward motion to get used to, but yeah. Here, I'm only using very gradual direction changes and letting the camera do most of the cornering for me. And you're just out of the stage without too much trouble. There is a lot of detail in Mission Street, but I've already done tutorials for this stage, which are online. I may need to record a new one. I don't know if I've recorded one since my old YouTube account got nuked. I'm not sure. Either way. Straight into Aquatic Mine, the next Knuckles stage. Now, at the start of Aquatic Mine, you do need to be on the lookout during the intro cutscene, because there are several free pieces which are hanging out, which you can just see in the intro cutscene. There's going to be one directly above me if I've got it, so nope. There's a couple on the left-hand side, nope. One on the right-hand side, no. So I don't see any in the intro cutscene. I'll go to the locations I was checking so you know what to look for. So there's a free piece that can be here. There's a free piece that can be here. A free piece can be in front of each of these three big fans. And there's a free piece that can be on top of this archway here, or on top of these logs. So if I exit out and let the cutscene play one more time, might get a free piece, but you know where to look now, so you can check yourselves to see if there's any free pieces here. So there's not one there, none there, none there. And it doesn't look like there's any there. It is unlikely, but it's always worth checking to see if you get any there. So you always start Aquatic Mine by going up to the top and triggering the water level. I've got a good piece here, so I'm also tilting the camera to check behind here, because there can be a free piece here. But my first piece is inside this enemy, that's pretty good. So you want to get water level 3, and then get this monitor. So my next piece is over at the narrow path. So I did some pieces of movement tech there to make it more efficient when I was going towards this section. You'll commonly need to go into this area of the stage, but it's easy to lose a lot of time here, because you can like bonk there, and this slope can be very slow. It's difficult to ascend, but there's a couple of little tricks that you can use to get moving quicker here. First of all, The quickest way to get moving with Knuckles from a stationary position is to jump, glide, and then punch when you land on the ground. Like if you just start running, it's fairly slow. If you glide and then just run when you land, it's a bit faster. But if you jump, glide, and then punch when you land, you get up to top speed immediately. That's more efficient. To go over ledges like this, Knuckles is always going to like trip on the ledge like that. So you can either jump and glide off it, which can work. But if you glide for too long, then you're accidentally going to, grab on this ledge here, and it's a bit awkward. So what you should instead do is just punch over the ledge. So let me reset the camera here. If you just punch off the ledge, you'll exit it with full speed. You'll also land here just before the slope starts, and you can do another punch after you land to go up the slope with a lot of speed. So I'll do that again all in one motion. And that's a lot more efficient than just messing around with anything else. So I already know where my last piece is. Stair-shaped brick room. It's down this area and going through a lot of water, but that's frightfully inefficient, and instead we can clip out on this side. First of all, I'm going to clip out on a different side. So the way that clips in Aquatic Mine work are if you tilt the camera so that it's against the wall like this and do a short hop, you can see that Knuckles goes about as high as the sign is. Now, you can see that the sign is tilted so that at the top end of the sign there's less space between the sign and the wall. So if I try and do a jump and glide at the top of the sign, it doesn't do anything. But if I do it at the bottom of the sign just before I land, there's a lot more space between the sign and the wall, and it will actually force Knuckles out of bound from holding up. You can see that I'm just straight out there. And you can just do a lot of out-of-bounds shenanigans with this. There's a lot of places you can do this. Basically, any sign in the stage that's like that, you can do that clip out. You can also do it here. And you can just freely move around out of bounds. There's some invisible walls and stuff though. Now, the one that we need to reach the piece that I've got is the stair-shaped brick room one, which I mentioned it's here. So you can do the same clip out here. Just have the camera against the wall, do a short hop, and then glide while holding up just before you land. And you'll go out of bounds. And then we can just drill dive down here, and we can skip the travel to the peaks almost entirely. Like, again, when I'm going through the Knuckles stages like this, I'm only giving a very short screenshot of what the stages really look like in execution. You really just have to play these stages a lot to get used to playing them, because you're never really going to get the same progression of Knuckles pieces, and you just have to be prepared for playing the stages hundreds of different ways. You have to build familiarity with the stage layout, with the most efficient way to get from piece to piece, all the different things that can go wrong. You really just have to learn by experience with the Knuckles stages. So Route 101 is a very simplistic stage. I showed in my run the other day that once I hit the first hill, I'm going to let off the gas a little and start drifting. So I momentarily let go of A and start drifting. I'm going to maintain this drift state for the entirety of the stage. And the reason for that is that while you're drifting, you don't actually decrease from the boost speed cap unless you go up a slope or hit an obstacle, like a wall or a car. So I'm going much faster than I'm normally supposed to be able to, and I'm able to maintain this for the duration of the stage until I stop drifting. And I'm just avoiding obstacles as I go. So the only time that I use my boost is after I hit an obstacle like that car. And I'm going to save this next boost for after I'm up this next slope. So since I hit a wall there, it doesn't matter. Since I then went down the slope, that gets me back up to full speed. Like if I wasn't at full speed before, I would be after taking that down slope. So again, save this next boost for after this slope. And use this next boost here. These pit balloons will always give you a boost. Virtually always. The pit balloons will, the balloons that are in the middle of the track won't necessarily do it. So I'm going to deliberately hit this wall halfway through so it helps me around the next corner, and I've got the downslope there so it gets me back up to full speed anyway. The cars in this stage are also always going to be in the same position based on the timer, so if you play the stage consistently, they will always be in the same spots, but conversely, if you make a mistake, it will make them be in unfamiliar spots. So again, this is a stage that, as simple as it is, you do need to just play it a lot and get used to where the cars are going to be based on the state of the stage. So just enough time to slip through there. Now, you really do want to be at full speed for this last straightaway. If you make a mistake and hit a wall or a car, you can lose like 3 seconds on this straight alone because it's so long and it takes a lot of time to reach the president's car. But Route 101 is a fairly simple stage. How long have we been going with this tutorial? Alright, cool. Yeah, sure. So we are like more than halfway through the game, but there is a lot more details that can be brought up in the second half of the game, and I can also go into doing major skips after finishing the run, so I can definitely pad this out some. So Hidden Base is essentially hover jumps the stage. The intended route that you use here is going along these wooden boxes here, and hover jumping across here, getting these dynamite packs down. What is instead a bit more efficient is to go along the right-hand side instead. And you can potentially get these dynamite packs without stopping at all. And now, rather than collapsing these dynamite pillars here, you want to instead get on top of the drum. You can either do it with a hover jump like that, or if you're not too confident with your hover jumps, you can just use these vases to get on top, and you can just progress like this. No need to get those down. Now, there's a variety of different strats that you can use here. I'm going to get these enemies out of the way first. Now, with a virtually perfect hover jump from on top of this door, it's a little awkward to get back up here. So, from this door, with a virtually perfect hover jump, you can actually get on top of this little pole. There we go. So, once you're on top of here, it is possible to use another hover jump to go in this direction and try and skip out this section. You need to be very high to cross an invisible wall that's here. I was just over the invisible wall. The problem with this section is that this platform that's rising and falling, it is on a cycle. So I was basically lucky there that it was at the bottom part of the cycle. While you're going through the stage like this, essentially if you don't get that jump first try, it's not worth going for, because if you get it second try, the cycle won't be in the right spot. I'll try and go for it here. So even if I'd gotten the second hover jump there, like the platform cycle at the end would not be in the correct spot and I wouldn't have been able to actually make it there. There's a couple of alternative routes that you can use here though, instead of going for that really advanced pole jump, because that is a very advanced strat. You can go over here to the left and go through this wall, which isn't solid. And there's two corners that you can choose to go through here. You can go through this corner here and backtrack to this pulley here. Alternatively, you can go through the other corner, which is a good deal more precise, but it is a little faster. So I can go through this corner instead. I'm using the camera trigger to force free cam so I can see where I'm going. The problem with this is that you need to hit this corner very precisely, because if you just hit a wall with tails while you're hovering, it drags you down, and that'll just drag you down into the sand. If I hit both of the walls simultaneously at the very corner joint, I'll clip through instead without it dragging me down. So you can see there that I got momentarily dragged down before I clipped through the corner. That makes that legitimately quite difficult to land. So the final variant that you can use for this section is a skip that I prefer to use in runs, which is a lot less risky. We call it Axle Jump, named after Axel Thunder, the guy who discovered it. So instead you can just go through here as relatively normal, you're still clipping through a wall. But you can use another hover jump to skip over this fence, and this is a good deal less risky and still gets you through to this section. It's only a couple of seconds slower, but it's basically risk-free. So with a long hover jump we can just skip over here and get these dynamite packs down. And now rather than take this section normally, we'll again just cut this section off. I'm going to use the camera trigger again halfway through to get the camera right behind me so I can see where I'm going. Now there's a couple of different ways you can take this section. You can either collapse these dynamite pillars, which I used to do, but it's a little slower than just doing an extended hover jump to cross this large gap. You do need a very precise hover jump to make this though. I'm just getting rid of those enemies. So I missed my jump input there anyway. Can I still get over here? Yeah, I can still get back over here. Like, you need a very, very good hover jump to make it over here. That should be good enough. Just enough. So if I was any lower, I wouldn't have made that gap. There's backups that you can use if you don't have enough height there that only lose about a second, so that is well worth going for. But to cross that gap entirely, you need a lot of height, and if it looks like you're not going to have enough, you should just bail out and not try it, because again, if you collide with the wall as you're hovering, it will just drag you down, and you'll hit the quicksand below very easily. So we want to break this door and just get through here. Taking the spring is potentially faster if you can time it so that you start hovering at the peak of your jump and fire 3 shots to destroy the door before you collide with it, but that is relatively difficult. I'm going to see if I can clip out of bounds here and just take a death. There we go. I just want to die. I'm going to try the method that I was mentioning there, but like this is a non-trivial method and it's only about a second faster than what I did the first time. So that is a bit faster, but it's not very easy. We can also skip out parts of this maze section by hover jumping on... You can either do a hover jump on the door here, albeit it's very narrow, so it's a little more difficult. What I prefer to do is stand on this corner and then turn around. Again, while you're approaching this, you want to do your cornering in the air if you can, since it won't cut your momentum, and then just hover jump towards the door here to try and skip over it. So for this pulley here, a lot of people when they're learning, they take it relatively slowly, like wait for the camera to pan around there, or they will like try and take it fairly early, but the camera pan stops them from getting a clean shot at the pulley. If you're just holding down on the pulley and you do a hover jump as soon as you see the pulley going up, you'll just make it straight across though. Like you'll make it straight across like that very easily. Now there's a couple of jumps we can do here to get semi out of bounds. Normally you're meant to just get this enemy out of the way. Normally you're meant to collapse these dynamite pillars and progress through the normal route there. But it's relatively easy to get on top of this part here. You can see that Tails is already trying to jump and get on top. You can almost make it. So virtually any hover input will actually get you on top of here. Like, it doesn't even need to be a precise hover jump. You can basically hover at the peak of your jump and it will still get you up there as long as you're angling into the wall. And the same thing kind of applies here, that virtually any hover input will get you on top here as long as you are already moving towards the wall with some momentum. Like, it's momentum that helps you get up here rather than the quality of the hover jump. You do, however, need quite a good hover jump to get over the invisible wall that's here. Like, I'm over an invisible wall. You can see that it dragged me down there. So if I don't get a very good hover jump, then you just don't get over that invisible wall. So you need a good hover jump to get over there. And from here, we can just progress to this part of the stage, cutting out a corner. Getting those 3 lock-ons there is rather tricky, as is getting those ones. But you want to collapse those dynamite pillars as soon as you can to just get out of hidden base, hopefully, as soon as possible. What's up, guys? Alright, so Pyramid Cave is by far the most technical stage in the game. I'm going to have to decide how much detail I really want to go into in this stage, because there is a lot that can be explained in this stage. But there's nothing in this stage in the way of major skips. It's all just playing the stage more optimally. First of all, you want to try and just spin dash down this corridor. But if you just take the floor normally like this, you can see it's like, oh, I'm not going particularly fast. The speed pads are helping me get through, but I'm not moving like particularly quickly. Like if I just do it from the start and see how quickly I can get down the corridor along the center of the floor, you can see like it's not going particularly quickly. And I'm getting a like 14.6 checkpoint there, so the checkpoint reads 14 seconds. Now if we revisit what I said earlier in the run about when to let a spin dash roll, if the game interprets that you're going downhill, you should let a spin dash roll because it will force you to accelerate. If you're on the sloped sides of this hallway, the game interprets this as going downhill, so it gives you a big burst of speed. So what was a 14 checkpoint before just became a high 12 checkpoint. You can get as low as an 11 checkpoint, but you need to do this extremely optimally to get an 11. But the long and short of this is that you want to try and ride the slopes, but you also don't want to be too far up the slopes because then you'll also unlatch. So it's a little awkward to be able to do that properly. Now the casual method for this is to take this hourglass and go through to the spring here, take the pulley up. We don't necessarily need to deal with that. The hourglass has some really weird collision, and you can see that you can get bounced off it. If you approach the hourglass with a lot of speed and jump into it, that effect is pronounced a lot. Oh, please, don't get the hourglass like that. So you can get like a very large bounce off the hourglass. I'll redo it from the checkpoint here. So you can just cut that out entirely and go straight up there. Now, again, casually for this section, you'd want to take the somersault bars, or the trick bars here. Which, you know, it works, it gets you across, but it's not the fastest way you can do it. If you fall down here, the casual method to get out is to grab this hourglass and to just scale up like this. To get out like that. Not the most efficient way you can get out. We'll start from the checkpoint again, because there's a couple of things that I need to show here. So the two ways that you can cross this gap in the first place more efficiently is either to get on the side here and do a very precise spin-ash jump from the edge here. I missed the input to even get the jump, but it's no problem, because if you end down here, this is actually where I go for doing runs, because there's a much more efficient way to get out of this pit without using the hourglass. If you get into this corner where the char box is, and if you jam Sonic right up into the corner, charge a spin dash and let it go just while holding up, you'll bounce straight upwards. And if you combine this with a spin dash hover, which I showed in Metal Harbor, which is holding B, and now I'm going to hold A and then release B while still holding A, you get even more height, and you can end up on top of these archways. So this is the method that I actually use in runs. That I go down here, do a spin dash hover, and I just go straight across to this archway. And from here, you can just jump across here, and you can cut that entire section out, like there. So we get the bounce bracelet here. The bounce bracelet is extremely broken. You are normally just meant to use the bounce bracelet like this to gain a little bit of height. Like if I get rid of these enemies here. So the bounce bracelet is normally just meant to look like this, that you can see it gives me just enough height to ascend up these sections here. But a hidden property of the bounce bracelet is that if you move towards a wall and bounce into it, you may see that I went a little higher that time. Like if I do a stationary bounce, I've got just enough height to, you know, get up here. But if I move towards the wall and bounce into it, you can see that I go slightly higher. It's not that pronounced, but that effect gets a lot more pronounced if I have a lot of speed, such as bouncing into it from a spin dash. Suddenly you can gain a lot of height. The long and short of this is that in this bounce animation here, while Sonic is bouncing, if you contact a wall like that, the game converts your horizontal momentum into vertical momentum. So what that means is, however fast you are going forwards, you suddenly go that fast upwards. And you go really, really high like that. And this is exploitable in almost every remaining section of the game. Like first of all, we can just go like this. And we can immediately use it to skip this door here. Like normally you're meant to grab this key and unlock the door. Grabbing the key itself is awkward because the game has awkward collision. And you wait for this door to open, which is like, oh, it's no problem. But instead we can just super bounce off this wall if I don't get stuck against the wall. And you can see that when you go high up enough, the wall is not solid. The developers really took a shortcut while designing this game by making it so that, oh, if a player wasn't designed to be able to get up high enough on a wall, we'll just not make it solid because it's easier to program. So you can break through a lot of walls by simply being high enough like that. So you want to take this rail. In fact, something I'm just going to like quickly, since I have like time to burn, something I'm going to show for a quick giggle is, I guess, a little bit of a warning to players. Fair warning to tech, you might need to recapture the game very shortly. I'm not sure. It might come back up on its own, but you might need to recapture the game right now. So I mentioned that you want to take this rail, and ideally you obviously want to take the rail with a lot of speed, but at the point where the rail evens out, where it becomes flat, the last thing you want to do is jump. You really want to avoid jumping at the flat point of the rail, because if you do that at high speed, the game crashes. 100% consistent. The game just goes away. So let's get SA2 open again. But that is something that like you do need to like be aware of as a player, that, like I say, high speed on that rail, do not jump. That will happen all the time. You will crash the game, and there's nothing you can do about it. Let's get Twitch chat back. Thank you. Man, I'm really making the tech guys earn their keep here. Yeah, the guy, yeah. Alright, so let's get back through Pyramid Cave, and let's try and do it fast this time since we've got ground to cover. The crash is only if you go fast. Like, if I jump here, it's not going to crash. You can see it doesn't crash. That's only if you do it with very high speed. But you should just avoid it in general. So this door skip is a little infamous. This entire section, you're meant to go towards the right here, go to the end of this huge hallway and find a key and bring it back so you can open this door. It's not strictly necessary. First of all, the best way to approach the door is to... as soon as you get off this rail, I recommend flicking the control stick towards the wall and then just going neutral. That way Sonic will run parallel with the wall, and if you're far enough away from the ghost that was over on the left hand side, you won't aggro him, so this avoids the ghost from coming towards you. From here, there is a very precise spot that you can stand in, based on the floor. You can see where Sonic's feet are. It's like at the adjoining point between these floor markings, like where the 3 points on the floor markings converge. If you stand here in this general region, well, I say general region, this is actually very precise, but I kind of see it as a general region because I kind of look at this in terms of like very small degrees and pixels. So you want to charge a spin dash, hold straight up, and then do a spin dash jump, and you can go straight between the door and where it connects with the wall. That is a lot more precise than it looks though, so although I say, oh, do that in the general region, you really do need to treat that with a lot of respect and try and be very, very precise with the way you're standing. And the spin dash charge needs to be full, and you do need to get the spin dash jump off quickly, or Sonic won't leave the ground and probably won't clip through the door. So I've just got the checkpoint, so there's a couple of routes I can show here. You can either do the regular route to just go through here, and just take this section as relatively normal. You can skip this loop by just jumping across here if you want. So an alternative route that you can use, which is considerably more difficult but does save a few seconds, is to first super bounce up here. I spin dashed a little quick there. So I'm trying to do optimal movement across these roof gaps. Okay, so I should show, if you fail the super bounce, there is a quick backup you can do here, where if you stand on the side here, and if you just spin dash across and just hold left and let it go, then Sonic will like collide with this opposite corner and just bounce upwards. So you can see that you get bounced upwards like that by colliding with the sloped surface. And you can use that to get up here. So what I was trying to do before is just spin dash across this gap. I'm just letting the spin dash go and not doing anything. You will have enough momentum to cross the gap, and you'll automatically unroll when you cross the gap onto the next surface. So what I was trying to do before is some timed inputs to just get across and then immediately charge my next spin dash when I get across the gap. Like that. So once you get here, it looks like there's nowhere to go, but the bounce can be used not only to super bounce to get a lot of height, as I showed before, it can also be used to skew gravity. Gravity in this game is extremely dynamic. When I'm on this sloped surface here, you can see that Sonic is facing a different direction. The game, for a brief moment, is interpreting this direction as down. So currently, down refers to a diagonal direction that Sonic is facing here, and it can be further manipulated. But when you jump or when you go slow enough, the game just immediately takes gravity to facing back down. but we can temporarily force gravity to be sucked in that direction by bouncing after leaving this vertex. So you see there that I bounced, and I actually bounced in a diagonal direction. The game is essentially tricked for a short time into thinking that that is what down is. So if I do it properly here, you can just cut out that entire section, and this saves up to a few seconds. It is very precise to pull this off, because the direction that you spin dash off that snake statue does affect where gravity goes. Like if I do it much more sideways, this is not really going to work. Like you can see there, going in a much different direction, that is not going to work at all. So you need to do this in a precise direction. And additionally, if I wait too long, so if I do the angle correctly, but if I wait too long, again, the game is going to reset gravity to facing down. So you see that, I just go straight down into the pit. This is relatively precise to do. But if you feel like doing a really swaggy trick and saving a few seconds, then there you go. Snake Skip will achieve this for you. And since I have enough speed, I am able to run on that wall temporarily. So we do another short super bounce, get up here, just cross here. Now, this rail is very awkward. Getting a good camera angle to be able to go towards the rail quickly is a little tricky from the previous section. If you fall down this pit, this is a dangerous area because of all these spike balls and ghosts you can see. The ghosts will grab you and they'll freeze you. So if I'm going to try and find a spot here. So if I get grabbed, if you get grabbed in the wrong spot, then it's very easy for the spike ball to just come into you. There's not much you can do about it. So again, if you want to get out of here casually, you're supposed to get these platforms out and ride up them. But again, super bouncing up here is a much more efficient way to get out. So a new little piece of movement tech that I'm also using is what we call a bounce accel. I showed that you can homing attack, you can do a bounce. What you can also do is a homing attack out of a bounce. So if I homing attack and then try to bounce, it doesn't do anything because it just gives me a homing attack cancel. If I bounce and then do a homing attack, it gives me a lot of speed. So there's the bounce animation. This is difficult to try and pause buffer. So I'm bouncing right now, and then a homing attack, and it launches me forward. And when you hit the ground, you'll essentially hit the ground running with a lot of speed. So you can do it from a completely stationary position. And you can just be going pretty quickly to begin with. So again, stationary, and you can be running at high speed immediately. So what you want to do is get this, do a bounce accel, and then do a couple of chained homing spin dashes. This third spin dash, you want to reach the bottom of this slope and move right to try and super bounce off this wall here. You don't want to do a super bounce off this slope part of the wall here because you will not get very much height and you can get a lot of nasty accidents happening there. You really want to try and super bounce off the bottom part of this slope instead, off the flat part of the wall. And now this is an important section to take note of. There's a couple of different ways you can do this final loop skip here, but all of them involve needing to avoid these speed pads here. If I avoid the speed pads, then I'm able to jump across this loop, no problem. I can just do the loop skip. It's like, yeah, it's pretty normal. However, if I hit these speed pads here, they lock your controls temporarily, and that's a big problem. Because you can see Sonic's hanging in the air there. I've got a very inconvenient camera angle, and it's difficult to see what's even going on there. It's very easy to risk a death like this. Like, if I just try and do this quickly, it's like, yeah, it's difficult to avoid a death by doing that. So you really need to avoid those speed pads here. Alternatively, you can also like get on the side here and spin dash jump across so that you don't have to deal with the loop, but then you have the difficulty of the snake statues. So that can go wrong in that way as well. The fastest way that you can deal with this is using another gravity bounce. So if I get on the side of the loop like this and do another gravity bounce, you can just bypass that section entirely. Again, it's fairly precise. There's a lot of ways that can go wrong. You really need to like study what you're doing with super bounces to make sure that there's no like really bad ways that can go wrong. Okay, so Death Chamber is by far the most technical knuckle stage, and there's a lot of different strats that can be applied here. This is not as simple as the other knuckle stages in terms of just go to where your next piece is located. To begin with, you always want to start the stage by rotating the camera, because there's two free pieces that can be hanging out in the stage. There is a free piece that can be moving back and forth along this wall, which that's your piece 3. You really want to see that. And there's a free piece which is directly above this flame torch. So if I restart a couple of times, I probably won't get them, but it's just worth checking for. Okay, so I didn't get either of them there. Didn't get either of them there. I've got a green ping, so I won't have the second piece. I want to see what this first piece is. 3 Container Brothers. Alright, I'm going to see what this leads to, just out of curiosity. Alright, never mind. Alright. Oh, I was already restarting anyway, so it wouldn't lead to what I was thinking of. I'll restart a couple of times to check for these 3 pieces. No. Alright, so unfortunately they're not turning up, but they are relatively uncommon. So you saw me as I started the stage, I got my hint, and I also went in here to get the upgrade. This upgrade is technically optional, but you don't want to skip it. This allows you to break the metal boxes, which really widens the amount of areas that you're able to explore in this stage. So yellow and black stripes is over here. Yeah, piece is a little awkward to grab. Get my next hint. Bat and a scorpion is over in the blue area. So here's a neat little thing to demonstrate. Currently I need to go over to the blue area. You can see over here there is a map of the stage showing the stage layout. That's how convoluted this stage is, that the developers thought, alright, the players really need a map so they can get their bearings in this stage. Currently I'm in the red room. I need to make my way over to the blue room. So as the map shows, if I go in this direction over to the left, that's the connecting like cyan pathway between the red and the blue room. I need to get over to the connecting pathway, but it's quite laborious to actually take that path normally. So what I can instead do is a clip that we call booty clip. If I get over here towards where this golden box is, I need to leave the box intact. So I need to jump over the box and make sure I don't collide with it. If I then, so I'm on the floor behind the box. Right now, if I jump, you just go straight out of bounds. And you can just fly around freely at this point. So I can just go exactly to where I need to be here. And only one who's looking down. So this is a good opportunity to show exactly the utility of what booty clip can be used for. Because in the blue room, this is where the piece that I need to be is. So you can see the monitor is now pinging red. It wasn't pinging at all before, suddenly it's pinging red. The reason that that happens is because those paintings, they don't drop you off on the other side of the wall, they teleport you to a different part of the stage. So I was physically teleported to a very different part of the stage there. The secret room that I was just in, where the piece is, you can access that from the booty clip that I just did. So I'm going to demonstrate that right now. So if I go back here and do this clip once again. So I'm out of bounds. I'm flying into a void, but once I get close enough to the hidden rooms, they're going to come into viewing. So that's the room that the piece was in. And that's another secret room, that's the one between red room and blue room. So if I go over here, you can see I'm right in range of the piece again. The final secret room that you can access from booty clip, I may as well just restart now. The final secret room is the one between red and green. Come on, Gabe, there we go. So if I fly over in this direction instead, you can see there's this much bigger secret room. It's not strictly faster to reach this room by clipping like that, because from the starting location, if I just go over here normally, the secret room is just over here, so it's not that much faster to use the clip, if at all, and the clip is not risk-free, because if you accidentally fall into the void, that does cause a death. So let's see what we get on this run through the stage. No free pieces, fly higher than a bird. So this is a very bad first piece. It's over in the green room, which doesn't typically lead to a lot of locations, but something that I'm going to try to exploit here is what we call death strats. This, the clips are like one part of Death Chamber tech. The other big part of Death Chamber tech is using deaths to your advantage. So this piece is all the way at the top here. So that piece takes a long time to get to, and if I get my second hint, let's see where I need to go next. Beauty and the Beast. So this is actually the golden box that I was doing the clip from. This is why we call it booty clip, because it's the box that contains Beauty and the Beast. So beauty, booty, whatever, you do it from the back of the box. Funny. But this is back in the red room. So rather than travel back to the red room, what I can do from here is take an intentional death, and it will teleport me back to the red room, and it will remember that I've already picked up my first piece. So you can see I still have my first piece, and I need to go to my second piece. When you die, the game re-rolls which piece you need. So this has actually given me the piece that's in the red secret room that I showed here. So if I fly over here again. But again, I'm going to take a death and try and show that you can, potentially. In fact, to facilitate this process, I'm going to get a more appropriate piece 1. Scoping tattoo. I want to try and get a piece 1 that's in the blue room. Bat in the hourglass. Nah, I'm not going to take that. Small flame, don't want that. Please give me something to work with, game. White family, nope. I should actually be checking for the free pieces in the room as I'm doing this as well. Junk storage, nope. Eyes bugged out, no thanks. These are all pieces that aren't really working with what I'm trying to demonstrate. Middle of red eyes, alright, this piece can work. This is in the blue room. So this gives me an opportunity to talk about the way that the game actually generates the pieces. The game generates the pieces sequentially. So the game will generate piece 1, then it will generate piece 2, then it will generate piece 3. This is important due to the logic the game uses to determine what is possible for it to generate. Piece 1 is always totally random. The game just looks at all the piece 1s that it can generate, it gives you a random one. The game then looks at where your piece 1 was, and it will give you a piece 2 which is always at least moderately far away from where piece 1 was. Like, piece 2 is always going to be far away from piece 1. The blue room is far away from the red room, and there aren't too many piece 2s which are in the green room. So there's a higher distribution of piece 2s that are in the red room than there are in the green room. So if I now die, there is high odds if you get a piece 1 in blue room that you'll get a piece 2 that is in the red room. So if I keep dying within a few attempts, I should get a piece here. There we go. So I immediately get a piece. And it's the same piece again, Beauty and the Beast. So I can just get up here and collect it as normal. Again, I'm going to leave the box intact just in case I need to use it for a clip. Flat Scorpion, so this one is in the core. Please give me that. And so for this piece, I need to just dig here. I need to get that switch so that this falling weight doesn't just crush me. I see Onvar in the chat is mentioning a couple of pieces of text such as corner climbing. This is a good opportunity to demonstrate what corner climbing looks like as well. So when you just scale walls in this game, this is your regular climbing speed. But Knuckles can obviously climb diagonally as well, and if you climb diagonally into a wall, the game forces you up faster than normal. Like, I'm going to be against the wall here. I'm going to scale the first half of the wall vertically and then go diagonally. You'll notice that on the second half of the wall I get a speed boost. Like, I suddenly go faster. As far as we understand, this is because the game can't apply the horizontal speed boost. Like, it can't keep moving you horizontally once you're against the wall, so it instead adds that speed to your vertical speed. That's the best explanation that we have for that. So that does save quite a bit of time if you can do that. So for this piece, I'm just going to clip out again. Oh, please. I'm also periodically drill diving and resetting my glide. That's because if you glide for more than a few seconds, you start dropping a lot more rapidly. But if you restart the glide animation, it removes that like deceleration decay. So since this piece is in the blue room, I can again die to try and re-roll another piece forcibly. Give us a couple of attempts. Game's playing hard to get. Like, it's really trying not to give me any re-roll pieces. There we go. So what's this piece? Nape of the neck. So this is just behind here. And then hopefully we can close this out with a clip piece. Dig in front, front. This is back in the core. Alright. We'll just move back to the core then. My first piece was above the small flame, the one that's in the blue room. Above the small flame can be in two spots. It can either be in the red pathway that's connecting to green, or it can be in that blue hallway that I got it in there. Alright, so this ends the desert stages, and this brings us into the desert bosses. We've got King Boom Boo for Knuckles. If you saw my stage run yesterday on main stage, I really struggled with this fight. Thankfully, I'm able to see what I'm doing now, and I can go into this boss in a little more detail, explain how things work. So, the basics of this fight. To do this fight in a basic manner, first of all, you want to wait to be able to hit the ghost with the hourglass. If you just try and go for the ghost with the hourglass immediately, he's going to run away. Like, you can't do this. If you just keep trying to chase the ghost, this will keep happening over and over. You can't get the hourglass ghost in this manner. So what you instead want to do is wait for him to throw 4 fireballs and then do his breathing in animation, and then he breathes out a bunch of fire. Once he breathes in after throwing 4 fireballs, you can safely approach the ghost. So I'm going to wait for a audio cue here. So after 4, he's going to do a breathing in sound. Once that sound plays, you can safely go for the ghost. So if I restart again and time it so that I'm approaching the ghost, as that sound plays, you'll notice that the ghost isn't going to run away. So again, 4 fireballs, then he'll breathe in. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So now the ghost is just immobile. And you can punch him. And this opens up the skylight. Since I've restarted the fight, it's black outside. Apparently it's nighttime, that's fine. So now you need to dig the shadow out of the ground and go towards him, punch him. Now casually, this fight is meant to take 4 cycles. Like, they expect you to just, like, oh, you're not able to catch up with him because he's too fast. But if your movement is very precise, you can still catch up with him and deal additional hits. What I'm going to do here is deal 3 hits and make it into a 2-cycle fight. And I'm going to show here, first of all, you want a 1-cycle fight because it's faster. But you really don't want to deal with having 1 hit left because he gains this large chomping attack before he starts throwing fireballs. So this wastes a lot of time on its own. Yeah, you can see how long that lasts, but additionally, when he's at low health, he throws more fireballs. At 1 health, he's going to throw 8 fireballs. And I need to wait for longer before I can go for the small ghost. I'm going to need to wait until the fire breath actually comes out. And it's likely now that his movements, when he's in the ground, are going to be a lot more erratic. He's still giving me fairly good movements, but you can see, like, he's moving quite quickly. He can choose to climb the wall if he wants to, and he's difficult to track down. Like, it's a lot to deal with. So to restart the fight, to show the 1 cycle efficiently, I'm just going to do it once over efficiently. I'm going to try to get what we would just call a good fight without the advanced strats. So I'm going to start slowly moving around without getting a line of sight to the ghost until after the 4th fireball. Going to move towards him quickly by jump, glide and punching as I land on the ground to get up to max speed, as I explained in Aquatic Mine. Take the shadow out, punch again to get towards him, and now I'm going to get a precise angle and just be punching towards him. And you can just finish him off in 1 cycle like that. There's a couple of things that can go wrong as you're dealing those punches. There are a couple of things to be aware of, so let's break this down into a little more detail. So there's 2 main ways, well, there's 3 ways that you can get those punches as you're following him wrong and essentially lose the 1 cycle. I'm going to try and go over all of them here. So the first way that this can go wrong is that you just don't hit him. Like, your angle is wrong and you just don't connect with a punch. So I'm following him like this, but you can be too far behind him and the punch can miss. So the angle is precise like that. You need to be going leftwards enough to actually reach him. But additionally, if I'm too far ahead of him, then when you hit him on the front half, he'll turn around, and that will immediately lose the 1 cycle. So you can't be too far to the right, otherwise you'll fall too far behind him, but you can't be too far to the left, otherwise you'll hit him the other way. So the allowable angle for this is actually very precise. So you just need to practice this, you need to pay attention to exactly what will work and what won't work, and there's one more way that you can mess this up. So even assuming that your angle is perfect for getting these hits, your timing can be off. So I punch him. So you'll notice that when I inflict damage, he flashes red. Essentially, every time he touches back on ground, I want to punch him after he flashes red 5 times. So I missed him there, so let's reorient. So I'm keeping on missing him. You can see that once you start missing him, it's difficult to get back in control. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then he becomes invulnerable, but that's when the cycle ends anyway because I took too long and the skylights reclose. So we'll try this from the start and I'll show you exactly what I mean with the invulnerability cycles. So again, I'm going to wait for him to flash red 5 times on the ground before punching. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this time if I go any earlier, if I count 1, 2, 3, 4 and punch, I'm going to miss the punch. Like I'm going to miss this last hit. 1, 2, 3, 4, punch. But you miss it because he's still invulnerable. And again, you'll fall behind. You'll really struggle to get back up to him. You probably won't have time for the 1 cycle. So you really need to avoid that. So that's how the fight can go in simple terms. First of all, I'm going to use my tool to gain 99 more lives. Do I need to... I think I need to relaunch the tool actually, yeah, because I closed the game at one point, so I need to relaunch the tool. Give me a second. 99 lives. There we go. Alright, 99 lives. Completely legit. So the advanced strat for this boss, and this is a very advanced strat and it only saves a few seconds, is that we can get the ghost with the hourglass early. I'm going to just try and attempt it first, and then if I get it, I'm going to explain exactly what I'm doing. So I didn't quite get it that time. I'll try again. This is very, very precise. I was off the other way there. The way you approach him and the way you retreat from him needs to be very, very exact. I was too late on my dig there. So what I'm trying to do is run towards him to bait him into lunging for me and then back off so that he misses me. Like if you get close enough, he lunges towards you and bites towards you like that. If you do it at the very start of the fight, then he'll lunge towards you, miss, he'll go back to his starting spot and he'll do a very high bounce. You can use that high bounce to then try and get underneath him by going back towards him, jamming yourself against the wall and digging into the ground. If you do it exactly right, he'll actually pass over you and force you behind him. Like this. 2 more digs now. And now the ghost comes towards me and I can just punch the ghost immediately. So I'll try and do that one more time, all in one go. Yeah, you need to get close enough to him for him to lunge towards you, but it's very easy to either go too close or not go close enough. I'm not doing 2 digs here because it's fun either. This is necessary to make this work. Otherwise, he won't move properly and it's just all bad news. From here, the fight is exactly the same. You just do the regular 1 cycle that I already described. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and punch. And you can get him in 1 cycle, and that should be around about a 40-second fight. Let's just get the chat back up. Alright. 39-34. So this sends you straight from King Boom Boo, which is the 2nd hardest boss fight, into Egg Golem, which is the hardest boss fight. Also, yeah, there's Big the Cat. Nice. So yeah, Egg Golem. This boss is a bit of a nightmare. The quote-unquote casual method for doing this fight is that you've got these back platforms and you can ride these platforms up and just attack his weak spot. You attack his weak spot 5 times and you win the fight. Doesn't sound too bad, and it's not too bad if you're just using this method. If you really want to use the back platforms, you can make each hit slightly faster by standing on this 2nd platform, doing a double bounce and just attacking the hieroglyphs. Something that is important to note with this fight is that regardless of which method you're using, he'll do these attacks, and every time he turns around to face me, he's deciding his next action. If you're in the back half of him, when he's deciding his next action, you're very likely to trigger the spin attack. So he decided not to do it there, strange. So if I'm just like behind him and I miss the opportunity to get onto his back cycle, so he does these electric pulses that are going down him. This signals that he's starting his spinning attack. This is uninterruptible. He just spins around, so you're not going to be able to easily get onto the back platforms when he's doing that. And they tilt and it's really awkward, so you ideally want to be nowhere in his back half when he's about to start his next attack cycle, otherwise you'll trigger that spinning attack and it generally wastes a lot of time. When you have dealt 3 hits to this boss, he changes his attack pattern. Now that I'm in the front half, so he's going to face towards me, and he's now going to do a head smash hit. So he tilts his fist back, he's going to slam his fists on the adjacent platforms that are next to me, and then he's going to smash the platform that I'm on with his head. So what I'm going to need to do is wait for his fist to come down, move to the side, do a double bounce on the platform that's next to me, and then once his head is down and once he's smashed the platform, I can homing attack his head safely. Like that. So just to demonstrate again, he should do another spin attack since I'm in the back half. Yeah, there's another spinning attack. So once the spinning attack is in motion, you can't interrupt it either. That's like the worst thing about this. Like, you can't make him stop doing this. So let's just get one more head smash hit. Again, I'm going to wait for his fist to come down, bounce to the side, and then deal the last hit when he's vulnerable. So that's the fight in simple terms, but there is a much faster method that we have to deal with this fight, but it is very, very mechanically difficult to pull off. I mentioned in Pyramid Cave about using super bouncers with the bounce bracelet. What I maybe wasn't stringent enough in describing is that for a super bounce to function, you need to do the bounce input before you contact a wall. And these platforms are very narrow. This is a wall, but it's very narrow. So I can do a super bounce by spin dashing towards the wall and then jumping and bouncing like this, spin dash, jump and bounce, all before I hit this wall. There is about 5 frames that I have to perform this. And this is a 60 FPS game, so I have just over a 1/10 of a second, or yeah, like just under a 1/10 of a second to perform each of these. So it looks... So I tried to do it there and I didn't get the bounce input in time. So that's a successful super bounce. So to do that, you hold the B button, you release the B button, you jump, and then you bounce. All of that needs to come out in this timing window. So now. So now. So I need to do that between when I release the spin dash and hit the wall there. It's barely any time at all. But if I do it successfully, then you just get bounced straight up and you can bypass everything I said about using the back platforms and you can just get very quick hits on him. But it's very easy to miss them as I am here and go sailing straight into the sand. So this is generally not really worth attempting unless you can do it very consistently. Because if you like get this half the time, like half the time you get the bounce, half the time you fall in the sand, it's not really going to save time. If I exit out of the story and just re-enter the fight as normal and do the fight with casual strats, we'll see what time I get with like casual strats. Ah, fit. Messed up. Yeah, the timing on those platforms can be very unfriendly. But the long and short of this is that with the casual strats, you can get around about a 50-second fight if it's executed well. So in order for super bounce strats to even save time on this boss, you need to be finishing the fight in under 50 seconds, and it's very easy to make mistakes here with the super bounces. I'll get one more to try and trigger his head smash. Alright, that's fine. Punch me. There we go. Alright, so now he's going to start head smashing. I need to make sure I'm in the front end. There we go. Alright, so a very swaggy last hit you can get is if you're about to land on his arm, as I am here, you want to actually be holding down right when you land on the arm to immediately gain control of Sonic, and then tilt clockwise so you run the other way. And you can then do a spin dash jump off the arm and just get straight back up to the weak spot. So I'll try and do a good fight just all from the start. The reason that I'm exiting Hero Story is that the more times you restart the fight, the slower his reactions get, so he just spends more time sitting around doing nothing, which isn't very practical for demonstration. Ah, the game really cheated me there, wow. Yep, so that's expected. Hope to get a third bounce here before he attacks again. Okay, good. So now he's going to head smash here, and when I rebound off his head, he's going to send me onto his arm on the right. And then I just get the spin dash jump hit off here. And a good fight typically looks like that. If you want to save a little bit of in-game time as well, by that I mean the timer in the top left that's playing through the stages, this is what we use for timing runs of this game, so you are trying to optimize your in-game time. If you die in the sand at the end of the stage, then the in-game timer stops early. But as long as the victory animation plays before you actually die, then it overrides the death and you just still pass the fight. So those are the basics of Egg Golem, as well as showing some super bounces. Now this is the end game, the final 4 stages of the game: Eternal Engine, Meteor Herd, Crazy Gadget, and Final Rush. Meteor Herd is an RNG stage, it's another Knuckles stage with hunting. But Eternal Engine, Crazy Gadget, and Final Rush all are either very skip-heavy stages or cycle-heavy stages. Eternal Engine has either a major skip or a cycle, depending on which you want to go for. I'm going to demonstrate both of them. First of all, I'm going to go through Eternal Engine at a fairly leisurely pace just to show the route of the stage. So destroy these 2 enemies to unlock this gate. Go to this right side and jump into this sprint. Get that enemy out of the way and jump across to this pulley. Once you reach the top here, hover jump across and just progress as normal here. You don't need to destroy these enemies. Every time you approach one of these doors, it's worth doing a short jump and hover to slow yourself down, because if you approach them with max speed, they won't be open in time and you'll just bonk into them and lose all your speed. So for this next door, I'll just run straight into it, but it won't open in time. You can see there that you want to avoid that happening as much as possible. So you want to go over these boxes and trigger this switch. This opens the next locked door through here. No enemies in this room. It's worth not firing in this stage if you don't need to, because these dynamite packs that are on the floor, if you destroy them, these gaps are now kill planes. So if I get sucked out of the stage here, and there is a strong gravitational field there, you will just die if that happens. So unless you need to shoot in this stage, I don't recommend doing it. So I'm just using minimal shots to clear obstacles without locking onto the dynamite packs. So you need to activate this missile pad. You can see this missile is rising up, and once it becomes fully active, steam comes out the back of it, or smoke, and it's going to launch forward and destroy these cages. You need to activate this to keep progressing. So this room is a little weird. There's a shadow on the ground, and Omochao even warns you. Yeah. He doesn't describe the nature of the shadow, which is if you land on the shadow, that weight's going to come down. So what you want to do is destroy this drum barrel and just hover over the shadow and get the switch. So now it won't come down now that I'm under it, and you can just be here normally. This enemy is, you need to destroy this enemy to keep progressing. You can wait for him to come out and then shoot him in the face. I'm going to actually take a death here. I need a dynamite pack, there we go. So another way that you can deal with this enemy is to just run up and punch him in the face. I actually didn't get it. I'll try it on this enemy. Yeah, when you're in super close range, Tails' attack turns into that propeller punch, and that will destroy the enemy regardless of if it's out or not. The fastest way you can deal with this enemy is to jump and shoot him in the face. Just no scope him. It's pretty good. With this enemy here who comes out and tries to attack you, if I get out of range again, he'll probably... I'll see if I can just get him to... become hidden again. Is he? Yeah. So if I maintain a lock-on, then he's not going to come out and attack me. But when the lock-on runs out, then he starts attacking me again. So you can bypass that enemy without attacking just by locking onto him. So if you're trying to do the relatively simple skip in this stage, this is the room that you need to reach. And you can see these platforms are moving up and down. This is a cycle that we try and meet. I'm going to describe that in a bit greater detail as I'm going through the stage again. First of all, I should die one more time to show my timer at the checkpoint. So my timer is at 133. I reached the checkpoint at 133. The platforms that are rising and falling on the acid, the cycle is generally 8 seconds long. So when you reach the checkpoint here, by looking at what the timer reads, you can tell what cycle that you're on. To be on the fastest cycle, you need to be at the checkpoint at 105 or faster. So then you can add it in like 8 second increments. So it'll be like 105, 113, 121, etc. So you can generally look at your timer here to see what pace you're on for which cycle you're going to meet. That was weird. Because essentially, the way the platforms are rising here, like right now, I need to wait for this platform to come up. Like, I have some waiting to do here. Now, this is all you need to reach in the stage because there is a major skip you can do here. In this corner, you can actually clip out of the stage at this spot. You can see that when I'm on top of this drum, I'm like nudging against the wall and it keeps knocking me back in bounds. There's a couple of ways that you can actually force Tails to exit the stage here, to go out of bounds. The method that a lot of people use is forcing the door to open, getting here, facing a specific direction, which is up with a little bit of right on the control stick, so it's like north-northeast if you look at the control stick as a compass face. And then the door will actually force you out of bounds. If I go over here, I can trigger a kill plane under the acid. So I'm going to do this all again in one without pausing the game. So you can get out of bounds like that, and it's fairly reliable if you execute it correctly. The method that I prefer to do, because I've just generally been more comfortable with it, or I used to do this method because I don't actually use this skip anymore, I'm just showing this for demonstration purposes. There's a positional method you can use here by lining up the bottom of Tails' heel. I don't really have a mouse capture, like I'm not capturing the mouse cursor, I don't think. Maybe I am. Is capture mouse cursor enabled? Alright. Are you able to, can you enable capture mouse cursor quickly? Sorry? I'm not getting any audio through the headset. Sorry. Okay, it's there. Alright, cool. So, the bottom of Tails' heel here is lined up with this floor marking, like this looks like a black D on the wall. So if I line up the bottom of Tails' heel with this starts my position. I also need to be hard against the wall, and from here, if I just run straight forwards and jump at the right time, once Tails' heel crosses this white floor marker, if I just continue to hold up and do a short hop, then if executed correctly, it will just send me straight out of bounds without needing to use the door at all. So straight out, all in one go. That's what I prefer to do. Now, that's just to get out of bounds, so I should show you what you need to do to actually reach the end of the stage from there. So I'm out of bounds. So I wait until the camera catches up before I start hovering, and now you need to fly down right like this. You're completely out of bounds, there's no kill planes down here, it's just a matter of reaching the goal ring. So we do quite a bit of flight like this, and your direction really does matter because you need to, not miss the goal ring. And because of the amount of distance that I'm covering, if I go in the wrong direction by just a few degrees, by the end of the travel path, it translates to a lot of ground that I need to recover. So there's this green pillar here, I then go to this second green pillar here, and if I just drop down in this spot. So currently I'm standing on an invisible floor. This means I'm directly above the goal ring. You can probably hear the goal ring. If I then move over here and drop down, this grey wall, you can see that it's sparkling there. That's the back of the goal ring clipping through the wall. So if I touch that wall, I'll finish the stage. But I don't necessarily want to do that first. What I first want to do is to have a quick run through the stage to show how quickly you need to move to meet a good cycle. I mentioned that the fastest cycle you can meet at those platforms above the acid is 105 on the checkpoint, so I'm going to try to reach that checkpoint at 105 or better. So that's not a good start. I'm going to just try and restart here. Okay, got those platform, got those enemies, good. So again, I'm going to be doing short hovers as I'm approaching the doors to cut my speed a little bit. This is very good pace so far. Very, very good pace. This might actually be a 103 pace on the checkpoint. Oh, I was actually too optimal in terms of that platform was too far ahead. That is something that can happen if you're like super optimal. That platform is too far ahead and you can't get onto it without a very, very good hover jump. So I can take a slightly worse start here. I'll still be on good enough pace for the first cycle, but it will make the platform there a little more convenient to jump on. That's fine. I lost a bit of speed on the door there, but this is still fine. Yeah, this platform at the bottom after the missile pad is going to be much more conveniently placed now because I'm a little slower than I was last time. There we go, it's moving back. So as long as you can clear the cages with only one hover, you're generally on good pace. So again, destroy this, don't land on the shadow. So now we're coming up to the checkpoint. And a 105, just like that. So this is about as slow as I can afford to be to still comfortably make the cycle. You can get it with a 106, but you need like a very awkward backup strat. Like you can see here, 105, and that's exactly the timing that I need to make that cycle. So then we'll just get the clip out, one more try. Yay. And then you just go towards the goal ring again. So this, on a first cycle pace, will typically get me around a 2-minute time. This is going to be around about 2 minutes, 2:01, 2:02 maybe. We'll see what it is around about the end. Yeah, that's like a low 2-ish minute time. I took a little bit of time to reach the goal ring there. Now, there's one strat that I need to talk about, which I did in my marathon run and showcased on main stage yesterday. A much faster way to deal with this stage, but a much more difficult method, is to clip out right at the start of the stage. So what I'm going to do first is get the first checkpoint so that I can just, keep using it. Now, it is possible to clip out in these corners where these wooden boxes are. If you jump and shoot simultaneously, you can break both of those boxes at the same time. That causes that metal box to fall down. And if you're underneath the metal box when that happens, most of the time it clips you out the stage. But there's a lot of variables in determining whether that works. If you just run towards it and just do it like this, you're not going to be able to get under the box. You need to have a very precise position, a very precise angle approaching it. The method that I use to determine how to approach it properly is that if I'm running just along you can see the edges of these floor markings, it's a red line. If I follow the red line and when I reach this corner, I then move diagonally towards the box. I also use the lock-on laser to show which direction I'm moving in. So normally I use this side, and say if I'm just moving forward like this. So I use the laser, move ahead, and now you can see that the laser is deviating just to the right of where the metal box is. this shows that I'm on the right angle. So if I approach it at that angle and jump and shoot simultaneously, right as I reach the wall, in theory, that should destroy the boxes and get me underneath the metal crate so that it will clip me out of bounds. But this is extremely temperamental. So I'll try and show this all in one attempt. So you can see there, I didn't break both the boxes. I'll try it on the opposite side here. Got out of bounds second try there, which that didn't seem like a good approach. So I'm not entirely sure how that one worked. This method for the clip out was discovered by JW13, who's just been in the chat before. What's up, JW? Thanks for this method. I really like this method. So now you need to get to the goal ring as normal. There's a couple of things you can do to facilitate making that a bit easier. During this huge flight, you actually want to do 2 seconds of free fall. So when the timer reaches like 50 seconds, I'm going to free fall for 2 seconds and until it reaches 52 and then start flying again. So the reason that I do this is to make it more convenient when I reach the goal ring. If I didn't do that drop, then when I reach the spot where the goal ring is at, I'd be too far away from the goal ring because I'd be above it and I wouldn't be able to hear it. But if I do those 2 seconds of free fall, I'll actually get an audio cue. I'll be able to hear the goal ring before I reach it. I'm also now using just some very vague background cues based on the way some of the background is situated to tell which direction I'm going in. There are much more thorough tutorials for this online rather than what I'm doing right now. I'm just giving like a basic overview of how this stuff works and what to look out for, but there are much more detailed tutorials of this game online, which you can find either through our Discord server, which you can find through the Speedrun.com leaderboards, and we also have video playlists linked through the Speedrun.com leaderboard. And I'm in the same spot that I was before with the old clip, except the camera is situated a lot more awkwardly, but again, if you touch the same wall that was sparkling, you'll just hit the goal ring and you'll clear the stage no problem. If you fall past the goal ring though, as I probably showed before, you just die and you need to start that skip all over again. And getting that clip out is very temperamental, so you really want to avoid that if at all possible. So we're coming into the final RNG stage here, Meteor Herd. Meteor Herd is by far the largest stage for treasure hunting, but it's also very open, so navigating it is actually very easy. You've got a hit monitor at the very start here. So dangerous water drops is right at the top of the stage. First thing that I can show is that there is a free piece check you can do right here. If you hold both of the shoulder buttons, it forces the free cam angle. So it gives me a nice unobstructed view of this wall here. There is a piece that can be going up and down this wall here. If I just start the stage again and just do it without the camera abuse, you'll see that I don't have a very good view of the wall. Like, I can't see the wall, so it's not until I start using the shoulder buttons that I get a good view of the wall. But either way, I don't have it, so we take the rocket up. So my piece is where 2 stone platforms are joined. There's another free piece you can check here that's going back and forth around here. But this piece is over here, where 2 stone platforms are joined. So for my next hint monitor, I want to go back over here and get this hint. The first stage, this is back down at the bottom, and it's at 0-1. Got the piece, and my last piece is, thanks Meteor, try dig while watching the stars. This can be in 3 separate spots. I'm just going to have to see where the radar pings when I get back up to the middle of the stage. This is in the lower spot, so I'm actually just going to go straight over here. And then it can be in a couple of spots on this wall. I'll play through the stage a couple of times to like show the sort of like combinations of pieces you can maybe expect to see. This is a very good first piece. So free piece check there. Again, not seeing anything. So this piece is just right here. Floating, this is the worst piece in the stage. Straight from one of the best first pieces to the worst second piece. You need to go all the way up to the top here. And then you need to keep climbing. And keep climbing. And keep climbing. And keep climbing. There is no faster way to get up there. You need to climb for about 10 seconds to reach that. That wastes a lot of time to get this piece. And then floating around the moon is actually a very good piece 3, which is in the middle of the stage. Then there. So I'm still getting like under 50 seconds, even with floating stone above a moon. So let's try a different piece combo. In front of the weight elevator. This is an okay first piece, but I don't think it'll lead to anything particularly good for piece 2. Next hint's over here. Big door that never opens. That's actually not bad. That's down here. Floating around again. All right, so this is back in the same place. So I need to take the rocket back up to the middle. And just fly towards it. So let's try one more set, see what we get. Wooden box, this is at the bottom. Small meteorite is in the middle. So that's in this meteorite slash enemy here. Go back over for my last hint. Oh, this is container at the top of the arc. Oh, floating in front of 3 tanks. So this is the free piece that I mentioned I could potentially check for. So I'll show this actually. If I go back down to the base and take the rocket up as normal, I'll show how you can check for this as a free piece. So if you tilt the camera like this, then you can see that the piece is just hanging out there. So while you're rotating the camera, I'll do it without pausing, and I'm just going to pretend that I'm going over to the clustered meteorite area. I should have just enough time to see it in my peripheral vision. Like, you can kind of see it if you look out for it. You need to be like looking out for it though. Alternatively, you can just pause buffer it as I did, since that is permitted since we use IGT, and it doesn't cost any time when you're on the pause screen. Just as long as you like don't take the piss with the IGT strats and leave the game paused for absolutely ages, it's generally accepted. So that's Knuckles' last stage, and we're coming now into Knuckles' last boss, which is Rouge. Now, there's a couple of ways to take this fight. You can really take this fight with a ring or without a ring. It's basically the same either way, but you can take a ring for safety if you're not confident about getting a quick fight. To get a quick fight, what you want to do is just rapidly jump and drill dive on top of her to keep her AI passive. Rouge's AI doesn't do very much as long as you're airborne a lot of the time. So if I just grab a ring, and as long as you do this, she doesn't do very much. Now, the tricky thing about this fight is that you really need to finish this fight within 20 seconds. Because if the timer exceeds 20, the floor opens up. And then if you need to deal with flying around and trying to find her, this fight can potentially take a long time. Which is why you really want to finish this fight quickly. And yeah, just tracking her down can just be a nuisance. So the way that I do this fight is just to go for it as soon as possible. Also, wow, nice direction. So as soon as I get in control, I just drill dive on top of her. And I just keep going at her. There's really like not too much to describe with this fight, and again, there's tutorials online. We've got a very active Discord server where you can ask questions if you're having any struggles with it. If you are going to go for a ringless though, you really need to make sure that you drill dive right on top of her instead of just gliding straight into her, otherwise she will just kick you out of the air and kill you immediately. So Crazy Gadget, I'm going to be giving this stage a couple of run-throughs to show a couple of ways that you can deal with this stage. You always want to get this gravity switch first of all. And now, normally you would get this gravity switch to change gravity back to normal, but what is the camera doing? Wow, that was strange. Instead, what you want to do is do a super bounce on this back wall, so that you still have the inverted gravity. And then you can fall upwards into this next section, and break this tube here. You'll still go in it normally, but when I come out of the tube, gravity is still inverted, so that I'm on the ceiling here. And this is a lot more convenient for this section since I can now just super bounce again on this back wall. Progress as normal while still on the ceiling. So now you've got a few options for which way to change gravity here. You can change it left, down or right. Left takes you to all the skips you can use in the stage. Down or right is just taking the stage normally. So let's do right, the easiest way to take the stage. So you'll go down on this wall a little bit, and then you can light dash on this trail of rings to send you on this rail. And now gravity is also just going to be set to down. So this is the normal route for the stage. So you need to destroy that enemy to open this door. There's a checkpoint there. And now you can either homing attack across these enemies, like this, and then be ready to do the light dash when you get to the trail of rings. Or alternatively, you can just spin dash jump across the gap and do the same light dash without dealing with the enemies. What is possible that can happen there is that if you are too far away from a ring when you try to trigger the light dash, or if you accidentally grab the ring and then try to light dash, you'll instead bounce straight down. You can bounce and land on that rail, but you can see the hitbox is a little iffy. So what I recommend doing is being very prepared for the possibility that you're going to bounce down, and be ready to potentially just homing attack into the spring like that. Just be prepared to need to do that as a backup if you're going to do this stage normally. So we keep progressing like this. And I just mash B as soon as I get out of this pipe so that I can do the light dash as soon as I get out of it. Just like that. So now, if you don't want to do like an advanced super bounce strat, you can just get the gravity switch here, but you want to hold down as soon as you get the switch, so that you land on this platform and you can get the flame ring very early. Then get this to turn gravity back up. Go around here. And you want to really make sure you don't avoid this light dash trail, because there's another acid pit directly above me, so that's instant death if you hit that. This middle box holds the next spring, which will invert gravity again. Get the next light dash here. This enemy is not necessary, so you can just bypass it. And these enemies are also not necessary, just break the capsule and get through. These three enemies you do need to kill to destroy the locked door, or open the locked door rather. You can do a spin dash jump across here to take this top path. You don't need to take this gravity switcher because this door is open and you can just spin dash jump across this gap. This door is only guarded by this single enemy. You do need that switch to open this door. And now, the easiest way that you can do this room is, I mean, I'll show the casual route to do this stage, this room first of all. This is a very laborious room and there's a lot involved in doing this room. Like, you don't want to do this normal method, because the controls just while you're inverting directions like this are really awkward in and of themselves. Like, just controlling this is not very fun. Get rid of that enemy just in case. Please. So the light dash here is the fastest way you can do this section. Like that. Rather than taking the spring. Then there's one more spring here. One more light dash. Another gravity switch. Yeah, this is a long room, because this is meant to be a big puzzle. Camera? Alright, so the camera decided to kill me. Lovely. That's another reason why you just don't want to do this room if you don't have to. But I can skip most of this, actually. I can, yeah, if we just go onto here. Basically, at the spot that I was at, you can see the switch, which was on the side of the purple block. That activates a missile pad that's on the end of that final section, but we don't want to deal with any of this anyway. You've seen how long that room is, you've seen how much trouble it can potentially give you. So, what I recommend doing instead is a super bounce on this wall here, which can put you on the bottom of this purple block, which you can then use to go straight across. And from here, if you just move straight up, you'll hit the go ring. Like, you'll die and fall upwards, but if you're in the center, you'll just fall straight into the go ring, and that will finish the stage. So if I just give a run through of the stage, trying to go through fairly swiftly, using the normal route, we'll see what we can get. Please. This pace is a little janky, but we'll deal with it. It's fine. Still alive. Yeah, camera's bad. I'm going to take the down switch here just because it's a little faster, though it is a bit riskier, because you need to manually land on that rail. So I am going to be saving a bit of time here since I don't need to collect the flame ring again, but the route is basically the same.
Just to let you know, you've got half an hour left officially.
Alright. I can do that in half an hour, yeah.
Technically 50 minutes. Because we're ahead of schedule, so you've actually got 50.
Yeah. I'm near the end of the game anyway. Please get the switch, Sonic. Idiot. So yeah, you can be looking at finishing the stage in under 2 minutes with the regular route, but so let's assume that you're not doing the regular route and you want to skip the stage if you want to learn a more advanced strat. So again, I'm going to reiterate, there are much more thorough tutorials for these tricks online. I'm going to show 2 variants of skips that you can use to cut out large portions of the stage. Please give me that checkpoint. Alright. So, I mentioned if you take the left wall, from here we can do major skips. The first skip we can do is called Crazy Gadget Skip. Nice name. If you get on top of this ledge here and do a very precise spin dash jump, I'm actually able to get all the way down to the bottom where the next hallway is. So from here, I now need to be able to navigate through to the next platform, or the next hallway. If I take damage like this, it's not the end of the world, though I do need rings. So at this point, I've actually soft locked since I've taken damage and not hit the enemy. I can't get off this wall, and I have no rings, so I can't take a hit. So I need to take a death here. So that's just showing like the first thing that can go wrong with the skip. It's not the end of the world if you get hit by the enemy, but you need to know how to counteract it. So if you get hit by that enemy, you can just homing attack it immediately, actually. So again, that's a soft lock since Sonic decided not to go for the enemy. Ideally, you want to not deal with the enemy at all, but I want to show like how to deal with that enemy if that happens. I haven't done this skip for a very long time though, because I used the faster skip, the advanced skip. So you can see there that you can attack the enemy and just go straight through. If you manage to avoid the enemy completely and not get hit, that's the best case scenario. Once you get through here, you're going to enter the acid room. Now getting onto this floor is a little awkward. If you just use directional input and just hold down onto the floor, you'll keep bouncing off. For whatever reason, what you need to do is build momentum, and then just before you reach the floor, let go of the control stick so that you neutral stick onto it. And this gets you onto the floor for some reason. From here, you need to destroy, if I can even do it, you need to destroy this chappie here, this enemy. There's a couple of ways you can do it. You can either do a spin dash jump like I did there, or what I prefer to do is stand on here and do a bounce to reach him, like this. The way that the bounce is performed is that, as counterintuitive as it sounds, you actually need to hold down on the control stick and then perform a very quick A followed by a B input. And if you do that very quickly, you'll just bounce into the center of the room like that, and you'll be close enough to homing attack those enemies. Now, an important note here, before you round this corner, you need to be against the floor. If you are not against the floor at this point, the camera will be very, very weird when you round the corner, and you won't be able to see what you're doing. So you want to be against the floor. Camera follows you. And now, at this point, you need to jump. If you don't jump at this point, like if I don't have a jump now, this is another soft lock, because if I fall against the next wall without a jump, or if I don't bounce into the next wall, I don't have control of Sonic, there's nothing I can do, I need to restart the stage. But I have a jump, so you want to bounce into the wall, and you'll bounce straight through. And now this huge wall that I'm falling towards, the goal ring is past this wall. The visual cue for where I need to fall is that there's this huge pattern. If I count 3 across, so 1, 2, 3, and then 5 up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I need to aim for this spot that's hidden behind the E on leaderboards here. So I'm going to be trying to fall for that spot right there. So I'm lined up vaguely correctly, but I'm going to make sure that I miss so that I can do Crazy Gadget again. So you can see that I just missed the goal ring there. Again, that's basically where the goal ring is. So I'm going to do the skip just all in one, uninterrupted. Again, like if you want like more details for these skips, I highly recommend you check out the tutorials that are online. I'm just giving a basic overview of how these work. So that time I didn't do a homing attack cancel, so I didn't get the necessary distance to cross the gap. That's my fault. But no problem. So we missed the enemy entirely. This is the fastest way you can do this section. And then I'm just going to do the bounce method to get the artificial chaos in the middle. Go through here. I'll show what happens if you don't go against the floor here. So, yeah, that looks fun, right? That looks like a manageable way to deal with this. It's like it's difficult to even determine where you are there. And then I'm going to deviate again. So I'm making sure that I avoid the goal ring there. So I'm going to speak a little bit about the most advanced way to do this stage. I just showed you Crazy Gadget Skip. Now I'm going to show you Crazy Gadget Skip Skip, CGSS. It's called Crazy Gadget Skip Skip because it skips needing to do the skip. I'm going to just try and get out of bounds first of all. So I jumped too high. So the problem with this skip is that this box-shaped room that I'm in is surrounded by a bunch of kill planes, and there is a small gap in the kill planes near the ceiling of this room that I need to do a weaving motion to avoid. Like that. I did a series of motions on the control stick to go between a bunch of kill planes, and now I can fall throughout the entire stage. I'm just going to miss the goal ring here. Yep. So you can see again, that's where the goal ring is. Once you're falling, you need to be using a very specific direction based on, again, some very vague directional cues based on the background. That time I didn't get my jump off. And you also need to be able to actually get enough distance to hit the goal ring, which is easier said than done. So that time I didn't tilt up enough to avoid one of the kill planes. There's a lot of ways this can go wrong. Okay, so I'm out. So I wait for the camera to catch up to Sonic before I start tilting the control stick. I'm trying to maintain a very specific direction. I'm going to bounce to augment my distance, and then I'm going to turn away at the last second just so I don't hit the goal ring. But that shows the method of actually getting it. So I'm going to finish a CGSS here and move on from Crazy Gadget onto the last couple of stages. Okay, so I didn't get out of bounds that time. I think I tilted down too soon there, and I tilted back into the first kill plane. Whoops, don't do that, Sonic. Yeah, don't bounce, that's not a good idea. Didn't get the jump again. It's quite a precise input to be able to get the spin dash jump here, because you can't be holding A before you release B, but if you press A too many frames after releasing B, then that happens, what just happened there, that you don't get the jump off. Hit the kill plane again. I'm tilting down too quickly, so I'm going to need to focus on exactly how I'm hitting this quickly. This is like, it's difficult to express how precise this actually is. Didn't tilt up to avoid the kill plane. But this is pretty much the most difficult thing you can do in the game, in this run. So this time I'm going to hit the goal ring. I'm going to go in the right direction, going to augment my falling distance with a bounce, homing attack cancel out, and straight in the middle of the goal ring. That is like the fastest way you can do that stage. But it's very, very difficult. People have lost many a good run to trying that trick. It saves a lot of time, but it's scary. Like, you could see that without any skips, I finished the stage in about 150, and with that, I finished in about 50 seconds. So you can save like a minute in Crazy Gadget by skipping a lot of the stage content. So this is Tails' final boss, Eggman 2. And casually, this is like a very dangerous boss fight, since if you just try and take him on in a direct firefight, like, let's just try and shoot him up. Like, that's not going to work. This happens all the time if you try and take him in a direct firefight. And the main reason for this is that while he's firing the huge laser, the laser actually eats your shots. So you literally cannot take him on from the front. What you want to do in this fight is keep circle strafing him. Because you can get out of the way of the laser like this and wait for opportunities to attack him. But you can just avoid the laser and attack him from the side. That's really how I recommend doing this fight. One thing that I am going to need to show, I'm going to try and force a specific situation here. So, what you really want to avoid doing is punching him in this fight. If you're at super close range, you'll punch him instead of shooting him. It deals 1/3 of the regular damage, and it sends him all the way across the arena and can trigger another laser attack. Like this. And from long range, the laser is a lot more difficult to avoid. In some circumstances, it can be impossible to avoid. Like, he can swing the laser very quickly, so you really don't want to get in that situation. So what I really recommend for this fight is, first of all, you don't want to be mashing fire as soon as the fight begins, like this. Like, he'll start moving off as soon as possible, and it's a lot more difficult to get a good shot on him. Eggman doesn't start moving until you actually fire your first shot, so if you face in a specific direction and then start firing, you can lead him, and it's a lot easier to get the first shot off. And from there, I got an early third hit there by hitting him before his laser came out. That's not really necessary if you just want to have consistent fights. You can just circle strafe him and not worry about getting quick hits. And yeah, you can get confused. So as long as you just maintain this sort of fairly close distance, but not close enough to punch him, this fight is very, very manageable. You just need to not panic, and you need to know what the timings of his attacks are. But he's very predictable. Also, for whatever reason, if you're on this side of the arena, there's this area that he can't physically enter. So you can easily get lined up to hit him with an attack like that. So let's just give it one more go and get a clean fight. A clean fight here, like a really clean fight, can be over in under 15 seconds. Like, yeah, you can get very, very fast fights on Eggman. So, for Final Rush, the final Sonic stage, I'm not an expert on the skipless route. I'm going to show the skipless route and basically show what it looks like and some things to avoid, but I'm not going to go into huge detail with it. But I'll then describe at the end how to skip, again, most of the stage entirely. So you come down this starting rail. You want to just naturally fly off this rail and angle upright so that you land on this rail. Like, you don't want to jump or anything. Spin dash and bounce onto this rail. So if you're not taking the skip, you'll just take this route down normally. Rail switch here. So there's a couple of directions you can take here. And there's a kill plane right there that you can hit if you're not careful, yeah. It's always worth being careful of that kill plane being there. So I'm going to get back down to where I was and show the couple of routes that you can take here. Whoops, that was my fault entirely. I did a rail switch jump, but it was at the wrong point for some reason. Like, I didn't actually transition to the other rail. This is why I skipped the stage. So right here, you can see that the stage is leading to this section where you go along these rails, go down, blah, blah, blah. There's also this side rail that's off to the side and just goes all the way down here. This is actually a shortcut and it's much faster than the regular route. So if you just take this rail down, like this is an intended shortcut, but it's already a lot faster than the regular route. From here we just progress here. Now there's a couple of boxes you can take here. Just take the middle one, bounce through it. There is a, wow, nice clip game. That was something special. Alright, well at least I'm starting from just back here. I've never seen that clip before though, that's really weird. So there's a wall run that you can do here, but I am not very good at it, so I'm just going to show you how to ascend this section efficiently. You want to jump off this rail with a lot of speed so that you can get up here. Take the spring. These vertical rails can be incredibly awkward, and you can get a lot of accidental rail switch jumps, so there's a lot of spots here where you want to just use neutral sticking on the vertical rails instead of with directions. If you want to just take this at a fairly safe pace, then you can just take this regular route. You can spin dash jump across here if you don't clip with objects. And if you can get a jump there, then you can bypass this last little bit and get up here. Nice gravity bounce there. I was trying to bounce onto the rail, but again, gravity was very, very inverted there. Thankfully, the checkpoint's right there. Like that. So if you can go over here with a rail trick jump and go onto this section, this is a little faster than dealing with the regular route for the stage. The regular route involves you being at this point and then, yeah, going all the way up here. And then you start, like, this is basically where I was. I recommend using the purple rail here since it gets you on the ground and you can just go straight through here. On rails, you always want to be holding B to accelerate as well because it makes you crouch and it makes you go a lot faster. You can just naturally fly off this if you don't want to take any risks and land on here. Do another spin dash jump across. And now you're meant to go to the left here, like you can see the springs leading up to the left and there's another route here. But if you can get the camera to follow you, like let me try and reset the camera here. Yeah, if you can get the camera to face this way, you can just go straight over here and onto this rail to cut out another section. Now jumping, doing a trick jump off that rail like I did there, is not entirely safe. It is very dependent on the speed that you have. Where am I even going to go here? I'm not sure. Oh boy. Where am I going? Uncharted territory. Come on, Sonic, you can do it.
You're going the wrong way, mate.
I know. Alright, whatever. I'm dead anyway. Last checkpoint was not too far back though. Yeah, it's like right here. I don't know why I didn't just die and take from the checkpoint. But I'm going to try and show what happens if you do that final rail trick jump without very much speed. Okay, so this should be like good speed for this. I still had a little too much speed. Basically, if you get caught on this part here, and you end up actually landing here, like you'll hit the wall about here, the game will push you down, and when you hit this corner, you'll clip straight through and die. So for that rail that I trick jumped off, I don't actually recommend that you do a trick jump there at all. Just let Sonic naturally fly off the rail, is my recommendation. One more bounce through here, and this is the last slope of the stage. You can just neutral stick here, you can do nothing, just let the game roll, and you'll roll down with max speed. And you'll reach the goal ring here. But Final Rush is a fairly long stage, so if you want to skip a lot of the stage, we have a couple of ways to achieve that. So there's a couple of ways that you can manage the skip here. You can either do a bounce attack, or you can just do a rail switch jump or a regular jump, and jump with inverted gravity. Right now, my gravity is inverted, and if I jump off at the steepest part of the rail, I can fall almost horizontally towards the outer edge of the stage. So you can see that my gravity is skewed here. Sonic is falling basically sideways. From here, you need to fall for a specific amount of time and with a specific visual cue so that you can fall around every kill plane in the stage and then fall towards the goal ring. There is a lot that goes into whether this is possible, but this isn't too tricky of a major skip. I'm going to first talk about the visual cues that I'm using. So my visual cue is based on the background. I'm looking at the top of the screen here, and you can see there's these yellow lights near where the score countdown is and where the timer is. So if I position these yellow lights so that they are just off screen, it's very tricky with this angle that I've got. They're basically like just off screen right now. That's exactly the angle that I need, as long as that doesn't vary. So the way that I hit a kill plane there, I'm going to get back up to the skip, get the checkpoint before the skip, and show a couple of different variations here. So let me get the checkpoint. Let me get the checkpoint. Thank you, game. And now I actually need to get the skip. Yeah, I didn't even have enough speed for that. That's really awkward when the game doesn't let you get a good rail entry, so I need to actually take a death here. So again, if we look at the yellow lights that are in the top left, so again, they're right at the boundary of the screen, they're just about off screen. This is exactly the angle that I want to use. Like, this is a little too low, but I've already been falling, so I might not hit the kill plane here, since I was already falling a little higher. Yeah, you can see that I'm basically falling forever and ever. So I don't know if I can even reach a kill plane again from this point. Probably not. I'm probably going to need to restart the stage now, because I will literally just fall forever there. So I've gone like outside the boundary of the stage. So that's the first part of doing this skip. The next part is the timing, so that you can then turn to the left and avoid another kill plane that's on the left and start falling towards the goal ring. Checkpoint, nice. So as the camera pans around there, I look at what my timer is. So the camera panned at about 18 seconds. Once the camera flips around to face Sonic like this, you need to fall in this slanted direction for 16 seconds with this variant that I use. So in other words, I need to fall to 34. I'm going to go like 34.5 or even 35 to be safe. Oh boy. So just for safety, I'm going to reset gravity by holding up at 35 seconds. Oh, I was still too low there, actually. Okay, that was because the way that I initially entered it was weird. So just pay attention to the timer. Look at when it turns around to face Sonic. Okay, so 19. So it needs to be 35. So I'll go at like 35.5 here. Reset gravity, turn to the left, and you want to turn to, we call this having Sonic's hand basically in line with Canada on the Earth. This is an actual photograph of the Earth, and if Sonic's basically in line with Canada like this, where his hand is like brushing against the cloud bank, this is the right direction that you need to fall in. And after about 10 more seconds of free fall, the end of the stage is going to come into view. There we go. Now if you're too far to the left here, if you're directly behind this last pillar, there's another kill plane that will hit you. Which I somehow avoided that. I'm not sure how I even avoided the kill plane there, because I was really far to the left. But either way, I've got a really central approach there. And you can see this is where the goal ring is. So I'm going to take another death. So this time when I do the left turn after my slanted gravity, I'm going to turn too early. And you're going to see that after I turn left, I'm going to hit another kill plane. So 19. So I'm going to turn at 34. So 15 seconds after I start falling. Before I did it for 16 seconds, I'm going to do it for 15 seconds here. I will hit a kill plane. See that? So the timing really does matter, and it is quite precise. Like, it's all a matter of degrees. So you might be thinking, well, you can just fall for longer and it'll be safe, right? Well, avoiding the kill plane will be safe, yes. But the point is that I need enough height to be able to make it to the goal ring at the end. So if I go super safe here, if I fall until 37 and then turn and then make it to the end, it's a crapshoot whether I will actually be able to hit the goal ring at the end. I might not have enough distance. So I've definitely avoided the kill plane and all that. I am able to fall to the end, but I probably will not actually be able to land safely. Like, I'm still probably just going to fall in the pit at the end because I won't be able to make it far enough. Because the further you fall in the slanted direction, you're falling further and further away from the goal ring. You're only falling outwards to begin with so that you can get around the kill planes. Any extra distance is just adding more distance that you need to travel back in the other direction. And since I'm falling, like, I'm lower down here, this is very uncertain whether I'm going to make it here. I'm going to end up quite low down here. The best case scenario is that I'm going to be able to clip through the invisible wall behind the goal ring, but it's awkward. Like, this is touch and go here. Yeah, like, you could see that I got pushed to the side there. I could have, like, forced Sonic through the invisible wall with the right inputs, but again, I'm, like, demonstrating stuff, but you can see there, you don't want to take any extra time to do this. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So again, I'm going to go at like 35.5 just to be safe, and this time I'm just going to finish the skip as normal. So now we're just going towards the end of the stage, and I'm just going to actually finish the stage this time. Yeah, I'm not demonstrating fast FR because it's not consistent. It doesn't even look like anything as a demonstration. You just launch yourself into space and you hopefully get through. So I've got tons of spare height here, and the goal ring's right there. So this leads us into the final boss of the run. If I have any like spare time afterwards, there is one additional trick I can look into, but this has already been like quite thorough, quite extended, and I'd like to think a decent way for someone to get first acquainted with the run. But again, more detailed questions or any help that people need, I really recommend that you join our Discord server. It's linked on speedrun.com through like all the Sonic games, so it's very easy to find. And we always like people to like helping people to get started with running these games. So what I'm doing here is the fast trap for Shadow. I'm going to break this down a little more. So I'm pausing because if I hit Shadow and finish the fight, that's the end of the run, and I actually can't pause or do anything. Like, I lose control at that point of being able to pause the game at least. So if I restart, there's a couple of things to really break down in this fight. If you're not too confident with doing advanced strats, then the way that you're expected to deal with Shadow is just let him pull ahead. And after he special attacks you, he's vulnerable to attack. So you can do this 5 times if you're really uncomfortable with doing the advanced strats. But as you can see, it takes quite a bit of time to do. But you can see that like this method works, it gets the job done. And having a slow 40-ish second fight like this is better than failing the advanced strat over and over. But the advanced strat is very consistent if you just really pay attention to what you're doing. What you want to do is use rhythm to keep Shadow in place. For each hit, I'm using 3 homing attacks. So like this. Let me get the first hit. Okay. Alright, let me start again. I just want to get the first hit as normal and then do the first rhythm hit, and then break down what I did for the rhythm hit. The rhythm hit is the second hit. Nice low bounce, you idiot. Alright, so what I'm doing here is I'm using 3 homing attacks. The first one is to start him attacking, because he reacts to my attack towards him by attacking himself. Like you can see that my first homing attack, that causes him to jump. The second homing attack is to keep myself in place and set up the timing, and the third homing attack is the one that actually delivers the hit. So the first one starts his attack cycle, the second one sets up my position, and the third one delivers the hit. But they all can come as basically evenly spaced homing attacks. And if you just keep the rhythm going like that, this can be very consistent. You saw on the first attempt that I did that he gave me a low bounce, I was immediately on the floor. Like, that can happen, you don't really have control over it, but for the most part, once you have the hang of this strat, you would generally expect to finish this fight in 16 seconds in most runs. Though I have seen this fight ruin world record more than once, so yeah. You can also bounce on Shadow if you want. Let me see if I can just get ahead of him. The bounce is actually the only thing that Shadow will not ignore damage from. If you pull ahead of Shadow, then he'll Chaos Control to get back ahead of you. But you can see that you can bounce on him and he won't ignore that damage. Even at low health, he won't ignore that damage. So, and he'll just run into you as well. Don't light dash. Yeah, he jumps to get back onto the higher platforms, but then... Dude, work with me here. It's going underneath all my bounces. This is why I don't necessarily recommend the bounce method, because it's not entirely consistent. How did he end up all the way back there? So then just one more bounce would finish the fight. So I'm just going to finish this out with one more just good fight. Doing the regular homing attack rhythm method. And then I think, unless there's anything else, that I'm going to call this. I think I've been going for nearly 3 hours, which I think is the time slot. And I've got a train in about 3 hours anyway, so... One important thing that I should note is that when I'm doing the homing attack chains like this, I'm not using analog input. I only use analog input to set up the first hit, but once I've actually got the hits going, I'm not using any directional input. That will only increase the risk that something goes wrong in the fight. Oh no! So let's just do it one more. Let's see if I can do it like this, actually. Ah! Low! Damn it! Alright, I got it going though. You can see that that's the logic behind how that works. But you gave me one of those random low bounces, like, what a troll. Let's just finish this. That's the fight, and that is a Hero Story speedrun from virtually start to finish. There's a couple of major skips that I didn't really talk about, like a City Escape skip, Green Forest Wall Run. Those are like super advanced. I don't necessarily recommend that beginners go for those at all, but again, we have tons of resources on like speedrun.com, on our Discord, on all sorts. So I hope everyone found this entertaining, educational. I hope everyone here at Insomnia enjoyed, and yeah, thanks very much to Insomnia for having us, UKSM for taking these runs. Thanks to everyone who enjoyed this, and if you've got anything else you'd like to know about this game, do feel free to track me down. If you're here at the event, please track me down in person, ask me anything, or get me on Discord. I'm fairly easy to find. I'm one of the administrators in the Sonic speedrunning server, so it's my job to help people out, help people get started. And I will be wrapping it up right here, so thank you guys very much for having me.
So that was Draco with the Sonic Adventure 2 tutorial. So we're going to have an intermission, and then after that it'll be the Spyro Reignited Trilogy, the first game, with 120% tutorial run by Nost.